look, there's a little cable over here. Look at it. I wonder if I can give it a little lick. I should probably move that out of shot, thinking about it. There we go. Hey, fixed. Uh, me, a heterosexual. Could you believe that? Could you imagine in a multiverse there's me as a heteronormative person? Disgusting. Getting with all those ladies, not laddies. Unacceptable behavior.
Are you done?
No, I just didn't have a bit to go with. We didn't have enough time to actually plan an opening bit, so that's all you get, everyone. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my webcam to play ball.
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, which, believe me, is close. To review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence. To seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable. To boldly go where very many other YouTube-based Star Trek shows have gone before and done far more successfully. Good evening! Change the light back. Good evening. Oh, shit, there we go. Good evening. Good afternoon.
He's got his LEDs now. Look at him. Oh, look at him in his fancy LED lighting. Oh, someone got their Secret Santa, didn't they?
Shall I go into disco mode?
Oh, God. There's always why is there always a disco mode? They're just like, take that, epileptics. Just... What in the Timu hell is that?
It's called the TK Maxx Special. Good evening.
I've had one of them before. I think I'm pregnant.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers throughout the world. Welcome to a live episode of Trekking Up North. I am your host, Captain Goodwill, and joining me, as ever, is the delectable Geesian from the planet Hong Kong. It's Science Officer Synoiz. Synoiz, how much sleep have you had?
Oh.
Yes.
No, I was going to be like, I've had loads of sleep. And I was like, no, I did go to bed at like 1 a.m. and get up at 8 today. So that's 7 hours. That's not terrible. That's fairly decent, I think. But you know, it was the weekend. At the weekend, I think it was something like 5 hours across the whole weekend, and I was like, yeah, this needs to be sorted. But yeah, we'll work it out.
You're a psychopath.
I love though that we have to point out that it's a live episode, such as our like crap nature of keeping the schedule. Because Fridays are crazy. Like, when did Fridays get so busy?
Yeah, we will be moving.
Well, we were talking about this earlier because basically, like, we were talking to the wonderful Lee and Chris, who, if you know Nerdy Up North, you'll know who Lee and Chris are, but they also do Top Grumps. And I think they're streaming tonight. I think they're on the Gaming Up North
Chris
Twitch.
is doing Twitch, yes.
Yeah. And it's that idea of just kind of going like, but then the problem is we're kind of like going, yeah, do we need to rethink whether we do trekking on Fridays? Because it was a great idea to start with, but then the amount that we've had to miss due to you being busy or me being busy, we're like going, it's like...
So we are looking at moving Trekking Up North for season 3 next year to somewhere else because I don't know if anyone notices there's not a lot of Star Trek coming up. So it's easy for us to move it to, say, a Thursday and just basically do it that way. Now that we get screeners.
Right now, all we need to worry about for Thursday is if we get in the way of gigs up north. But I reckon between us, and maybe if we hired Beth, we could take Kirsty. So if Kirsty comes in... Gersty?
Gersty.
That's when Garrick and Kirsty. That's when Garrick and Kirsty go out.
So speaking of Girthty, go on.
I'm going to call her that, and she's going to be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm not explaining. You should have watched.
Yes.
Instead of doing gig stuff.
You thick person, you. You girthy girl. So...
Paul's in the chat. Paul's been sleeping for the last 2 days. That's pretty impressive. That's actually pretty impressive. Like,
what is this sleep he discusses, weirdo? But yeah, so a lot of things to discuss for season 3 of Trekking Up North next year. But that is in the future. For now, because it has been a minute, it has been a couple of weeks, so we have got a nice little backlog of episodes to review this week. We have got both episode 8, Upper Decks, and episode 9, Fisher Quest, from Star Trek Lower Decks. And
while I don't like to break the habit of a lifetime, but we've made it incredibly hard for ourselves, and usually I require someone else for that. But it's just like we were like, oh yeah, we can miss last week's episode because both of us were too busy, and we were like, hey, it's too much of a faff to organize. And we were like, yeah, we'll do a double one this week. And then we basically had 2 absolutely brilliant episodes with tons to talk about. Now we're just like, okay, well, I hope we can finish this episode by Christmas. And it's just like, yeah, so it might be a long one, guys, because there's a lot to discuss, because these are 2 amazing episodes after the sort of humdrum lull of the series, where we've enjoyed it, but it has been a lot of average episodes in this season so far. And then, yeah, these 2 really make up for it, I think.
so, as Sammy says to all of her victims, strap in, baby, it's going to be a long one. Hello to everybody.
But what about Girth?
Girth D is on gigs up north. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to Paul, David, Beth. Who else have we got in here? We've got someone called Synoiz as well. He sounds a little bit creepy, so we won't deal with him. But hello to everybody watching live. Hello to everybody watching recorded. And hello to all of our audio listeners who are probably wondering what the hell is going on. And
I can't see them.
And what does Graham look like? So, yeah.
An egg with iron filings stuck to it.
He's an Austrian egg. So we
I escaped to Argentina.
Remember, take the Third Reich. So we
Google Maps in Austria. The Third Reich.
You will take the Third Reich.
Oh, Paul's been ill. I forgot. Paul's been really ill, so I love that it takes actual illness to make Paul rest.
Do you?
And he's still got the monthly quiz poster out today, so I'm very pleased with that. Like, he sent me, he's like on his deathbed, and he's like, I've designed the thing, and it's like, thank you, Paul.
Thank you. You can never die. Do you want to hear my?
Crucial.
Do you want to hear my World War II German joke?
Oh God, is it appropriate for the episode? Okay,
yes.
Cool.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
We will ask the question. So, episode 8, Lower Decks. I've been dying to say that all week. I love that joke so much.
She's in the attic. Anyway.
Ooh, do you work for McDonald's? So, we
Was it McDonald's or Burger King?
It was McDonald's, because Burger King said we don't snitch.
Yeah, and then Burger King. Oh. I'm sorry. I know we're meant to be talking about Trek. We're talking about it's an amazing episode of Trek, but it's the fact of this whole thing, and the amount of, I got sent like a screenshot of all of these women on Twitter being like, I'd fuck him. You know, and it's just being like, and it's just the most like, there's something when the world is literally on fire, pretty much. You just, not literally, but you know, when the world is on fire and you've just got people being like, yeah, cool. Yeah, vigilantes are hot. But
Upper Decks, episode 8 of Lower Decks. This is a touching tribute to the season 7 Next Generation episode Lower Decks, which is what the series is named after. And it's a great little plot twist to that episode because, as Boimler says, you know, nothing ever happens on the Cerritos with the command crew. It's always us lower deckers that get into anything. They just lead a boring life. And this episode goes to show that that is quite the opposite, because the Cerritos is in orbit of Bungar 5, where they are trying to study the bagoons and try and find out why the bagoons. The amuse-bouche of bagoons are a little bit rattled. So I love the fact we get a little pumpkin party at the start of the episode as well.
Well, I do love though that the joy of this episode is demonstrating just how strong the characters and the character development throughout Lower Decks is. Where
Yeah.
it's the fact that we can go, hey, we're going to do a whole episode without our main cast, like and it worked better than the Mandalorian. No, it worked better than the Book of Boba Fett, where it went like, hey, let's have an episode where the Mandalorian comes in, and it was better than any of the other episodes. You're like, whoops, you messed that one up.
This is
But,
the Book of Boba Fett. No.
Yeah,
So-
it's like it was,
Yeah,
but then it got good for 2
We
episodes.
got rid of the mopeds. So
But it's the fact of this demonstrates that this show has so many good support characters that it can survive an entire episode like on it.
Yeah.
And it's great because you get to learn more about them and stuff. And like you say, it's a very good homage to
it is
the episode that spawned the entire show.
It is, and it
in
gets
reverse.
it instantly gets very meta. Where Boimler says, and I quote, "We're stars of the show around here. The command crew just fade into the background." So the one thing that Lower Decks does really well, it gets very meta upon itself, and it gets very self-referential, but not in a overly obvious way, which we will discuss in episode 9.
I think the fun thing is though that the Lower Decks crew don't really appear. They literally bookend the episode.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff is happening, all this exciting stuff is happening, and they are literally just having a pumpkin carving party. That's it. That's all they're doing throughout the whole thing. Whereas in the Next Generation episode, the bridge crew were fully involved throughout the episode with the Lower Decks thing. So it's actually kind of better in a weird way.
It is because the Lower Decks crew, like Synoiz said, are completely and utterly bookended with this episode, where we just don't see them for 90% of the episode. But what we get to see is Captain Freeman's got a busy schedule ahead. She's got the briefing with the senior staff in the observation lounge.
How are we gonna go through this? Should we talk about each of the different
Yes.
subplots fully rather than because
Yes.
I wrote notes and I just went, it's really confusing because it moves between them. It's probably better just to go, hey, here's Freeman's subplot, here's Shax's subplot,
We'll just go
Yeah,
through.
just saying.
We'll just go through each one because we have got a Shax subplot, we've got a Tana subplot, which is my favorite. We've got a Billups subplot and a Ransom subplot, as well as Freeman subplot. So, which one would you like to start with first?
I think we should probably do the Freeman because it's the most Next Generation style one.
Yeah.
Because like I quite like it that happy Friday the 13th, Damon.
Oh God, it is Friday.
You
the 13th,
delicious
isn't
creature.
It?
It is. It's Friday the 13th. That's.
I hope it's nice and chilly in nice France, where you've got a
It's
stable
lovely in
government.
nice France.
Stable government that's not in tatters.
They're not full of wankers, but
But enough about the Labour Party. The
don't get me into politics. Don't to be fair.
I'm just printing off my "fuck the Labour" stickers as we speak. But
I'm just printing off my resume. my what's it called? The resume? No, it's called the
manifesto.
what's it called? Manifesto. I'm printing off.
Are you doing a manifesto as well?
I've got
Oh,
AI to generate it.
Oof, you're handsome enough to have
AI
one.
AI generated manifesto. The laziness. You haven't
This
you
is
haven't
what
even
happens.
sat in a barn writing this while eating cheese crackers.
This is what happens when you constantly play down Luigi as the second fiddle. So we
I think we should do Freeman first because
Freeman,
in the Next Generation we get this wonderful we get all these things where it's literally Captain Picard and he's like, hey, I'm not busy enough that I literally can go and see someone play the bassoon or a random jazz thing, or Data's telling jokes now and stuff. And it's kind of this weird thing of going, yeah, actually that probably is part of a captain's duty to kind of turn up at like crew events and stuff.
Yeah.
So her subplot is basically her having to go to all these functions, like what is it? Someone's fertility party. No, someone's fertility event, which I think is them giving birth. They have to go to. Yeah, they have to go to someone doing a play. They have to go to someone doing like
Is it the
a
tuba?
cave woman. playing on a bassoon.
Ah,
is it?
yeah.
Yeah.
She has the Zerta pathogen, and when Freeman's like, "What does that mean? She evolved and devolved?" And Tana's just like, "Both." She evolved, but she was afraid of fire. And he's like,
So-
How did you solve that? Candle."
So they're slowly sort of getting her back, but she's still got this chunky monobrow.
Playing
like
the
this sort of-
tuba with a monobrow.
Yeah, with this super thing, and it's just like this is very surreal. Like the whole episode is very surreal, but it's great though. Like the first scene that we get before we visit everyone is literally like them as a bridge crew meeting and having the meetings that we kind of see in TNG, but then
Yeah.
we've never seen in Lower Decks.
Yeah.
And it's really fun that you get that, and it drops loads of hints about stuff that's going to appear on the episode, such as it mentioned the Clickets, who are an insectoid race that hate being complimented and whatnot. But yeah, anyway, back onto Freeman.
So she has a busy schedule planned, but she wants a few hours to herself towards the end of the day. We don't know why at this point, but she goes to a tuba recital with the ensign. With who just throws the tuba, and it's just like,
well, I love it. She finishes the set and just chucks the tuba away.
Like someone from Redcar. But it's the fact that she's like, it's hard to concentrate on the music with such a monobrow. And then she goes to the fertility where she's like, I didn't even know you weren't human, to the fella.
Yeah.
She's like, I get that a lot, and just births this tentacle thing out of his whatever. And it's just,
what is this? What's going on?
what is this? And yeah, so
it's the fact that it looks like a lot of blood as well. Like that's what's so worrying about it. That it's like a sort of male identifiable kind of creature that's having a fertility thing, but then basically it explodes. There's red liquid goes everywhere, and then tentacles fill the screen, and you're just like going, this is the most Lovecraftian thing I've ever seen on Trek.
This is Star Trek hentai.
And it doesn't explain it. It just cuts away. It just cuts away from that and goes, "Yep, that's a thing that happened."
So yeah, what was the next thing on her thing, or did we never get to see it?
No, the next thing we got to see was the play. Who was it?
The
It was
play.
Bingston doing like acting, and it was a big Shakespearean sort of like. He's very, very camp, which I think is quite fun. But it's got him doing this sort of like Shakespearean monologue, but then it just keeps going on and on. It's all about his life, and like it's literally a play
it's not about him.
himself, isn't it?
It's not. No,
Is
it's
it
a
not?
tribute to Barclay.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a tribute to when Barclay was found out to have copied all the senior staff into holodeck characters in the Next Generation.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, and when he finishes, when he's like end scene, and when he finishes, he's like Chapter 2, the old birth years, and it's that thing that is a homage to when Data had a one-man show on the Next Generation, and the thing they're done, and everyone's clapping, and it's just like Chapter 2, and they all sit back down, and it's that I love that tiny little homage to that.
But I love that it's like this. It's just this sort of homage to all these different bits of Trek, but also pointing out like how difficult Freeman's job is, and it's not just the captaining we are used to; it's the keeping the crew happy and like
Maintaining
morale.
Yeah.
When's the next scene we see them in? Like
The
the
next
next scene
scene-
ties into what's his name, Ransom's plot, doesn't it? It's
No,
where they get attacked, is it?
they get attacked by the Clickids when
Yeah.
Freeman is walking down the hallway to their next appointment, and they get attacked by the Clickids.
We'll get that. We'll do that after Ransom's then.
Yeah,
And we'll
so
explain that bit,
Ransom has been put in charge of both Beta and Delta shift lower deckers on the shuttle bay to try and corral one of the bagoons so that a Federation scientist can study them and find out why they are also skittish and also scared.
I think that's really cool though that the Federation scientist. I've never seen this race before except in DS9.
DS9.
Like,
Yep.
DS9. They have the president of the Federation. I think
Yep.
it is this race,
Yep.
but that is the only time I think I've ever seen it.
Yeah. It's also a homage to V in this episode as well.
Is it? Oh,
It is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
homage. Yeah, it's a homage to V. So yeah, Ransom is on the shuttle bay, and he meets the scientist on the turbo lift, goes to the shuttle bay.
These are really
Beta,
cute.
Hmm?
The
Oh,
what
the
are they called? The
bagoons.
bagoons.
Oh, the
You
bagoons.
know
They
how
are so
you
cute.
fell in love with Moopsy and you're like, I need a cuddly Moopsy. I
Yeah,
kind of need a cuddly bagoon. Like they just like
you know
when
they're
you
gonna
see
do
them
it.
at the end of the episode and like their legs, they have these little tentacle legs, but they just rotate. Like they
Yeah,
rotate like tread, like like wheels rather than how you'd expect like tentacles to work.
they are
And I
so
don't know,
cute
something
though.
about them is cute. And the hilarious thing is that they can actually like cloak themselves.
Yeah, they've got a natural cloaking ability in their shell. So we see that when Beta and Delta Shift are trying to get one on board, and they are arguing, and they're just bickering with each other about how to get one. And one's trying to lure an asteroid so he can get into the shuttle bay, and they're like, "You'll hurt his feelings." He's like, "He's in space. He can't hear me." Um, and we see that in order to uh, lure him in. They get this asteroid, but they pull it in too fast and it crashes into the shuttle bay. And the bagoon gets into the bay and they are still arguing. And shit starts to hit the fan. So the bagoon gets scared and like curls into a ball into the shell and naturally
Yeah.
cloaks and starts
But
running rampant.
the bagoon seems drawn to the. I didn't understand this. The bagoon seems drawn to the asteroid. It has it like licking it at some point.
It's like
That
a
must be-
feeding ground. So there's
Yeah.
some sort of material on certain asteroids that they feed on.
Right.
As
Okay. Yeah. I
natural-
was just like,
yeah.
okay, that's great. But then, what it does over the course of this subplot as it's going on, we have loads of bagoons coming on and then going cloaking and basically flying
Yeah.
around the hangar, basically cloaked and ramming into stuff.
But in
So-
order, but for Ransom to try and like get the crew working, he keeps trying to tell them stories about what he tried to do in the past and how like his previous CO could bench 305 and he
Yeah.
had to impress them. And he's boring.
He's trying to give them
tears.
inspiring stories, but he's
Yeah.
so unrelatable that it's literally him just being like, "This reminds me of a tough time I had where I couldn't bench as much as my like superior," and you're just like, and they're all just like, "Well, everything is getting destroyed. Why is this helpful?" Like.
Very, yeah. Those managers that think that is a good idea. Oh, this is the time I sold my 5-bedroom house. Mm-hmm.
It's like when Tories try to sort of relate to normal people, and they're just like, no, I have suffered hardship. Oh well, I know what it's like to struggle through hardship. One time we only had 5 cars and I couldn't find them. It's like we couldn't afford to fill the moat in winter.
Oh, and now Reese Mogg's got a documentary on Discovery Plus.
Can you imagine if that doesn't end like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Like why are they getting funding?
I looked at the because I was on Discovery Plus the other day and I looked at the cover for it and it looked like the most screwed up Nanny McPhee you could ever imagine. Like if Nanny McPhee was run by like a boarding school principal, and it was just
And rather than magic, she just pulls the stick out of their asses.
I think it's
she just
thoroughly
burns the
sawn
house
in.
down. She just carries it. She's just like, yeah, there we go. I fixed that family.
So Ransom is trying to give them an inspirational story, but it is not working, and more bagoons are getting onto the shuttle bay and they are causing havoc, knocking shuttlecraft over, just causing absolute unmitigated chaos. And his second story where he's just like, I got a thing where we've got a hard time. You just kind of have to pick up, and he's just like, the crew are like, is he using this time as an excuse to work out?
Yeah, so he's picking up packaging crates and basically like pumping them like dumbbells, and the people are like, how is this helping? Like,
Yeah.
and it's this idea of like them just turning away from him, ignoring him, and then basically just working out the solution. But basically while he's lifting, one of the bagoons knocks into the Starfleet professor and knocks him to the ground, and then basically like he gets injured, and then he gets something happens with his eye, so immediately runs out of the hangar and bumps into Freeman and her PA, her assistant.
Her assistant,
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, have we seen him before? Actually,
We have. I can't for the life of me remember his name, and I didn't note it down.
yeah, I thought they'd changed Billups or something to start with, but no, it's just another generic bald guy because we all look the same. Let's be honest. But and then basically they go, "Oh, what's happened with your eye?" And then he reveals that there's this massive torn bit of his face, and there's a
Homage to
big
V.
alien underneath.
Yeah, the lizard people, as the conspiracy theories say, but it is a homage to
Oh,
V.
now we're
because
back to Jacob Rees-Mogg.
the lizard people. But yeah, so like it comes, and then we get like possibly, and again, this season has sort of like pushed that boundary in terms of like graphicness. I think, especially when we have
Yeah,
the
it's
Klingon.
pretty brutal. If
Yeah,
I'm
with the
honest.
Klingon being stabbed, and then we see this alien sort of break out of this guy, and it's not even like prosthetics; it is like fully thinged flesh, and it just cracks, and it's just like, and it turns out to be a
It's
clicked.
awful. It's
Yeah,
actually
the
actually
noises
awful
are
as
worse.
transformation. Like it's basically, if you haven't seen the episode, it reminds me of An American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
Where it's basically you get to see all of the viscera, the skin, the muscle coming off in animated form off this insect thing to reveal it's a clickid. Uh, but then obviously immediately Freeman ruins the entire thing by being like, "Who are you again?"
Yeah.
Because obviously they're basically making a big deal about how sort of like no one ever remembers them, and like everyone ignores them, and this will be their chance. Once they've worked out and stolen the Bagoon's personal cloaking ability, then they'll be able to take over the universe. And Freeman's just like, "Wait, have we met before?"
Yeah. And
we fought.
Yeah, we fought before, and he goes absolutely nuts. And then basically there's then a clicked invasion. So we see the Clickids beaming into various parts of the ships, and they're like, we will disable your puny ship, and we will incapacitate your senior officers while we harvest the Bagoons, and then we will harvest that cloaking ability and maybe eat them if they are tasty and the texture is good.
Yeah, it's a big ramble after his big speech, and I do like it that whole plan is expecting the higher ups to be the weak link in the chain. So if they can take out the actual bridge officers, then the rest of the ship will follow. And then what they end up finding out is that the bridge officers can kind of hold their own really, because
Yep.
immediately after this, oh god, no,
Immediately
this is
after
where
this,
everything comes together. So it's kind of
well, shall we get to Tana? Yeah.
Tana.
So there's been complaints from crew that Ta'ana's way of working is not great.
Her
in
pain management skills.
Yeah, her pain management skills leave a lot to be desired. As in, she doesn't have any. So she, but
Well, basically,
it's the fact she kicks off. She's like, "Who squealed?"
Yeah, it turns out that basically, Tiana, is it Tiana? Tiana.
It's Ta'ana, yeah, but
Ta'ana.
it's just, yeah.
Ta'ana isn't actually giving people painkillers because she's basically going, you can take it, you bastard,
Yeah.
and it means that people are in absolute agony purely because she has crazy pain management. Like she has crazy, and I quite like this because this reminds me of when I went to the doctors the other day because I was getting my regular health checkup, and when you get a nurse, I don't know how often you get bloods done or whatever, but like because I'm on like sort of prep and stuff, I have to get like my blood tested every couple of months, and basically you get nurses that just don't give a shit. You get nurses who are like, "Oh, you don't like needles? Okay, tell me." And like Beth, you definitely be able to relate to this, where you get the good nurse who's like, "Oh, are you okay? Well, I'll just warn you and I'll do all of this and stuff." And then you get the nurses who just, I don't know, it's just their bad day of the week or something, and they don't give an actual shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like they just literally go, "Oh, you don't like needles? Needles? Well, here it is. Oh, I've jabbed it in you. Oh, I've missed the vein, so we've got into the muscle, I guess. And you're just like, this is thank you very much, you bitch.
When I got rushed to hospital a few months ago with a suspected brain hemorrhage, I had one nurse who just legitimately could not give a toss and tried 3 times to draw blood from my arm, and the 3rd time, very much like what happens to Paul, I just passed out. I lost consciousness on the bed, and
Wow.
apparently she was just like, oh. And I'm like,
That's
really? Yeah, but I mean, I've had them before where I got rushed to. Oh God, my chest had locked up, like I couldn't move or anything like that, so I had to go in an ambulance, and I waited like 3 hours in A&E, and the woman, because I was at work and I got sent from the hospital, from work to the hospital,
Hold on,
and
your work let you leave.
my old job, yeah, because they had to call an ambulance because lawsuit.
I
But
just fully imagine like the way you talk about your job that basically like they'd be like, "Oh, well, you're not dead, are you? So it can't be that serious."
oh no, the old regime's gone. She's ruining something else. But this was my old job, and they sent me to the hospital in an ambulance, and I got there, and I waited 3 hours in A&E, got in, and I got the world's worst nurse, where there's no bedside manner at all. And because I came from my office in Stockton in Thornaby, she said, "Why have you come here to James Cook University?" And I was like, "Well, I was sent here, but you are from
The ambulance came here.
yeah, you are from Stockton." I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't live there. I live like the other way." And she just pumped me full of fucking morphine and just left me in like the booth. And I was just high as a. And I genuinely to this day cannot remember getting home. Like I was apparently just pumped full of fucking morphine, left in a booth, and then the next thing I remember, I was in my bed. So I was just like, how did they just put me in a trolley and push me in the general direction of my house? Like,
I I think it's going to end up like that the scary next generation episode where Riker realizes his arm's been taken off and like put back on. You're just going to be like, wait a minute.
But yeah, so Tana is told to basically brush up on her pain medication.
You know
And
what? I should have known when the nurse came in the room and she was cross-eyed. What's it called where you have one eye that's facing the wrong direction? Like it doesn't. Is it
lazy eye.
cross-eyed? Yeah, she had lazy eye, and I was like, I don't know if it affects your ability to actually see or look forward, but I was just like, wait, this is the person who's putting a needle in my arm. Okay, like
Um,
I don't know if it affects your vision. Anyway, wanted to just slip that in there, as I've said many a
that's
time.
what she said.
Yeah,
But
sorry, Lee, but
that's what he said. But yeah, so I love the fact that the nurse comes in and he's like, "Oh, I've restocked the anesthesia just in case a virus comes in where everybody sings," and I'm just like, "Subspace Rhapsody." But I love that she's just like, she's basically very much in denial about wanting to do pain medication. She's just like, people come in injured, they leave alive. If they don't like it, they can do the survey. And it's just like, how are you feeling? And it's just like sad and then
but I do quite like though that it demonstrates how she lacks empathy, but it's also the idea of if we judge everyone by our standards, then we
Yes.
don't get very far. Because it's the sort of thing like I find myself doing that a lot this year, and I was like, you know me, I do a lot of stuff, and I a lot of the time forget how much stuff I do. Where I'm just like, oh, I've been up for like 72 hours and I'm still working, kind of thing. Everyone can do that because I can do it, and then you realize that other people can't. And I find
Yeah.
myself getting annoyed by people who have literally they've done like 5 hours and they're like, oh, I'm knackered, and it's like, what? We've just started, But it takes a lot for me to kind of go like, oh yeah, that's because I'm the exception to the rule rather than that's how people should be. And yet Tiana's like going, hey, I've got a massive pain threshold because I'm a kinky fuck. However, patients aren't like that. Well, that's exactly what's happened. We
She
know their
is, yeah.
relationship with Jax throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's that idea of she's holding them to that kind of standard of tolerance, and she's realizing like, oh, but then her plan is to update the pain chart by just testing out pain on herself. It doesn't make any sense, but it's hilarious. Like, so basically, she asks her very 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 sassy sassy nurse whether he'll be able to just do the tests on her and basically just cause loads of pain on her. So cut her open with like lasers and yeah, it's just awful stuff.
Yeah, and he's just like all the way through, like he's cutting her with a scalpel, lasers, like various like dermal things and everything like that. And then there's one where he's just like, "Are you sure about this? This one is used to split atoms." And she's just like, "Fucking shoot me with that fucking thing!"
Yeah, I just love the whole scene though. Like it's literally the scene starts as it means to go on by the first line she says is Chief Medical Officer's fucking
log.
But I do love it. He actually gets a name. He gets called Westlake, and he is a
Westlake.
ridiculously camp nurse.
Yeah.
I've written down he's Gayogawa in this.
Gayogawa.
Gayogawa. And it's a testament to like Lower Decks being like, hey, we've just created this random throwaway character who you want to see more. Like I will happily see this character so many more times.
But this is what it does. This is what Lower Decks does so well. Very much like TNG, DS9, and Voyager, where they had these characters and just they weren't main characters, but they were there. They were on the ship, and they were just like they fleshed them out in tiny little ways all the way through the series. And you had this with Mr. Hom. Who was Mr. Hom, or then you had Mott the Barber on Next Generation. You had Morn. You had.
Was Morn always played by the same person?
Yes.
I always got the impression that it was different members of the cast would take turns to kind of do him. It was always the same person.
It was the same person, and he actually had.
I've just seen Chris.
Hey, Chris. He actually had lines of dialogue that were then omitted from every script.
So he actually said stuff so people could respond to him, and then they literally just
omitted it. And then obviously,
how did the stream go, Chris? Did you manage to stream? I don't know.
Scream? Did you manage to scream
on stream? We'll work it out. Scream my arms. I'm confused already.
Stream. But yeah,
you know what surprises me? Forgive me, people listening, for forgetting this, but like when we were in Las Vegas, they had the actress who played one of the pilots in one of the films, and she looks a bit like Zool from the end of Ghostbusters. She has a very, very distinct 80s look. Like she with sort of like the black pointy up kind of hair.
I can't remember.
She's literally, I think she's only in one movie or maybe a couple of episodes, but like it was just amazing to see that she's still there at the conventions, getting fans come up and chatting to her and stuff. And I got a brief chat with her, and I was just like, this is crazy that you just played this little side character, but you're so memorable that you can still be doing conventions like 30, 40 years later. It was... Chris, do you know who I mean? You're starting at 9 with the thing.
Oh, yes, I know who you mean. Okay, can someone please elaborate for me as a hardcore Trekkie?
It's really difficult. I feel annoyed that I've forgotten the name. I don't even think they get named in the thing, but it's one of those, it'll be on the what's it called? The Memory Alpha.
So Freeman and Ta'ana's story sort of like come to a head, where Freeman is like fighting the Clickids. They've knocked out her PA. They're fighting the Clickids, and then the doors open to sickbay, and there's Ta'ana on all fours. The Clickid shoot her, and he's like, "What? This was set to kill." And she's like, "So am I!" And just jumps on him and just starts beating the ever-loving shit out of this Clickid, ripping his wings out and everything like that. Knocks him the fuck out. She does a runner, and then the person who did the monologue...
The Clickid is basically, it grabs the phaser next to it kind of thing, is about to shoot her, and then Bingston, who is doing the acting thing, basically just stamps on its head and then does a dramatic sort of and scene.
And scene.
And it's just like, and you're just like, you've created a character who only appeared in 2 very, very short bits, and you've made them memorable. It's genius, you know?
This is what they do. This is what they do so fucking well. So that's Ta'ana's story. The last bit of Ta'ana, though, is in the mess, where she gets chowder spilt on her, and she's like, "Oh, fuck, that's hot!" And her assistant just looks at her, and she's like, "Fine, I'll give pain meds." And then he's just like, "That's a good kitty." Just, shut up. And then she's just purring.
It's just like a really, really great Just a great little roundup of all the plots, I think, you know?
It is, because we then going back to Ransom's plot, where they're trying to herd the bagoons and one of the Clickers invade, and the team work together to like subdue the Clickid and then go herd the bagoons and everything like that. And when they all leave because they've been able to like tag the bagoon and send them on the way and stuff like that, Ransom wakes up, and he's just like, it's revealed that this was his plan to act like an incompetent arsehole the whole time.
Yeah.
So they've got something to unite them together, to help them work together if they see that he's an incompetent arsehole.
Like, I love it that his entire plan was basically they will unite if they think I'm absolutely useless.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay.
Is this Team Leader 101? Like, how do you... is this the hidden book that we've heard so much about? But yeah, so that is Ransom's one. We'll go to Shaq's next.
But this is the one that I got excited about because this is the thing. I lost track of what episode we were on and reviewing.
8.
And but yeah, no, but it was like when we were watching them, but it was the fact of I had 3 separate people, yourself included, messaging me being like, have you watched it yet? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you will love it. You will absolutely love it. And then I wasn't sure if they meant this one or the next one, like episode 8 or 9. Because in this one, I love that we pretty much get a par wraith. Like,
I would say it's a par wraith.
It hints that it's a par wraith, or he thinks it is. Like, it suggests that Shax is possessed by a par wraith, because basically what happens in the initial briefing, he basically has a hallucination of, like, actually, Goodwill, lean back a bit. Lean back in your seat, and then go to your left. Move, no, right, sorry, right. Lean to your right. Okay, there we go. That's it. So basically, he sees a vision like that, okay? With half of the face in red. And then a serpent coming out of its mouth, immediately panics and goes back to his quarters after requesting a day off. It's that's it, officer. That's the man. But
oh god, that blinded me.
but he goes back to his quarters, and basically it turns out that this demon that he has inside him, and it only refers to it as a demon in the episode, basically splits from him and starts arguing with him. But it's a version of him with glowing red eyes, which is a trait that we've seen from people possessed by par wraiths. You know, we don't get to see it in the Keiko O'Brien, lest we checking in case she doth appear.
I have a theory.
Episode.
So the demon takes him back to the Battle of Tenpasa, where the Cardassians had placed a bomb in an artifact. Now, hear me out on this.
Mm-hmm.
Did that artifact contain a par wraith, and when it exploded, was released and went in and delved into the first body, like the first person that was alive there? I can't get my words out tonight.
It's a great theory. I mean, it's one of these weird things where in DS9, the Bajorans don't seem that sort of fussed about the par wraiths, as in they're sort of like they don't really believe they're real. Like, you know, there's still people like sort of like loads of characters who are just like, oh yeah, par wraiths are just kind of stories, when they're actually a genuinely tangible entity kind of thing. It's probably like in our, you know, in like world religion like Christianity, it's like, oh, the devil's not real, that's just a parable kind of thing. But then if the devil did turn out to be real and could possess people and stuff,
he's got a reality show on Discovery Plus.
It's oh god. But it's a good, like, I think it's a great little plot line, but it's really funny because it's basically got this it's got, like, you know, him being confronted with this sort of spirit, this evil spirit version of himself and whatnot, and the spirit's like, oh, what are you gonna do, kind of thing, and he's just like, I'm going to meditate. And then he gets down on the floor, meditates, hums to himself or whatever. And the demon's like, and the wraith's just like, oh yeah, you're gonna hurt me with humming? And he's like, no, with my fists. And then his soul, he astrally projects out of his body, punches the demon in the face, and then goes into a massive fight. And it ends up coming back to it later, and he snaps the wraith's neck, and then gets teleported to the memory of the Battle of Tempasa.
Yeah, where he then has to fight all the
Zombie
Cardassians,
Cardassians.
zombie
I guess.
Cardassians that he had killed. But when in reality, the people that
Oh
he's
no!
actually
Well, it cuts away. He starts fighting the Cardassians, and then next time it cuts back to him, he's literally on a pile of about 100 dead Cardassians. So it kind of suggests that he's literally snapped the neck of 100 Cardassians.
have you ever
Which,
seen
have you ever seen the size of a fucking Cardassian neck? That is an achievement.
Well, this is the thing. Like,
It has two
look,
backup spines.
look at the size of a Cardassian, and then look at the size of Shax. He
Yeah.
is a unit. Have you ever seen the Venture Bros?
Yeah.
Shax is Brock Samson.
I wonder if it's like a homage.
Yeah.
You know, like it's got a lot of stuff with Venture Brothers, like, you know.
It's
But,
like,
yeah,
what was Brock
like you were
Samson?
saying.
Brock Samson, half Swedish, half Winnebago, all killing machine. That's Shax.
I like it though. But yeah, like you were saying though, it basically has that happening. But then it turns out that when the Clickids attack, they reveal their plan. They basically run into the room where he's sat there meditating, and they sort of are about to like attack him. But then inside his like dream world, he basically takes control of his body again to fight the Cardassians, and then it turns out that the Cardassians are the same as the Clickids. So he's basically, as he's punching the Cardassians, he's actually beating up without thinking all the Clickids around him. I've explained that so badly, you know.
No, but like essentially, like his meditation state where he's fighting the Cardassians is actually him fighting the Clickids, and he's not aware of it. And when he finally, like, when he kills the Par Wraith at the end of it, and he gets back into his body, and he comes into reality, and he's just looking at this. Just a floor full of Clickids, and he's immediately Shax is like, "Oh, buddy, I'm so sorry." But yeah, and it's just like I like this, but I firmly believe that Shax has had the has been possessed, well, not possessed, but they have had a Par Wraith in them at this whole time.
Well, it's the fact of, like, you know, it would be fine if it was just like, oh, because he later on in the episode he explains it as, oh, that's the ghost of my unresolved anger because of like what I went through in the war. But the thing is, it shows the wraith, and then when it vanishes, it basically vanishes with embers.
Yeah,
like fire and embers.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well,
It's a
the
Par
whole
Wraith.
thing about the Par Wraiths is that they were in the fire caves and they're heavily related to fire. It just felt a bit like, I think it is, but he's not aware of it and no one else is aware of it. But it's a little Easter egg for everyone to be like, wow, the Par Wraiths are still around. Because DS9 kind of suggests, oh yeah, they've all been sealed away and killed kind of thing. But you're like, nope, still around.
This one, when you think about it though, but this one was sealed away until the Cardassians planted a bomb on the artifact.
It's so fucking dumb though. Like, what were the prophets thinking? Where prophets are just like, hey, let's seal them all in the fire caves, except this one. We'll put this in a tiny little statue. Oh, what should we do with this one? We'll just have it wandering around the fire caves so it can possess Keiko. Oh, what do we do with this one? Let's put it in this relic that Cardassians can blow up. And you're like, for beings that are meant to sort of like, you know, like, be greater than space and time, the prophets are a bit dumb. Actually, no. The thing is, actually, in DS9, every single instance of one of the prophets doing something does have a payoff. So it's just a very long game where they deliberately wanted... Well, aside from Keiko, all of the other incidents with the Par Wraiths were stuff that the prophets were like, hey, this needs to happen in order for the Cisco to prove himself, or for the Reckoning to happen and stuff. So it's... Yeah...
Well, they are wise in some respects, but lack wisdom in others, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. The final story is Billups in engineering. I love this little storyline where an ensign comes up to her and she's like, oh, we've got a burnt out bulb on this plasma relay. Can you just help me? And he's just like, yeah, sure. And then they realise that like the repairs that Billups have done in the past, he's sort of like shantied everything together and slapdashed everything, and it just becomes a chain of events where he's like, I rerouted the plasma through these, but I just forgot to get something new, so now they're overheating, and then they fix that, but then it's having a knock-on effect on this one, and then they realise that it's going through a system that he bought from these aliens, but it's got like this AI that captures Billups, and as Billups is being captured, he says...
No, it's absolutely brilliant.
It's brilliant.
He's talking about he got it from the Binars. So he basically bought this stuff from the Binars, and then he's just like, well, what does he say?
He says to her when he's captured, he's like, quick,
an AI golem. He's like,
AI golem. Yeah.
If we do this, it'll activate an AI defense golem. The way to defeat it is to reboot it while telling a sad story from your childhood to indicate that you still have emotions. And it's just like, what? And he's just like, oh yeah, that's just a thing.
That's just it's
this huge Mega Man boss type thing coming out the control panel, and you're like, what is this?
But they like she defeats this AI golem with an axe. For some reason he's in a coolant tube, about to accept his death, and he's like, this is how every engineer wants to go, by coolant in a tube. And she's just like, no, and she grabs the axe. She's like,
smashes it.
What are you doing? That's for emergencies.
The axe is for emergencies only. And she's like, how do you define emergency?
I know.
He's literally about to die. But I love it, and it's the fact that it's reminiscent of the Spock and Kirk moment.
Yeah.
As well, where he's just like, what the hell is this? And it suggests that this is just a normal day in his life. But I don't know anyone listening, like, I got PTSD from this side story because anyone who has ever worked in code will be able to relate to this, where you just find one thing, you just have to change one thing in a script somewhere, and then you look at it and then you're like, what is all of this other shit? And then you start unraveling it and you're like, oh god, like all of this, who did this? It's literally just tied together with string, and then you end up spending a whole day having to look into everything to work out whether it needs to be fixed or whether it's a put it on the list and get around to it eventually. But yeah, but I do love though that they take the panel off where the light has gone out, and literally it's just fire. It's just fire inside the tubes, and then they take all the things off, and everything is on fire inside the tubes, and you're like, okay, this is a serious thing.
But it's the fact he's just like, I must have had an off day. My mother might have been visiting. Everything is fire.
Yeah, he's just like, oh well, I got it working eventually.
Coders and mechanics have the same mentality where we find one thing that just leads to 78 others. I have set off to do one thing on a car and then been under it and found something held together with 17 tie wraps that for some reason has not fell off and caused a massive fire. And I'm like, But yeah, so
it's relatable.
So this was a good episode. It was a good homage to the episode Lower Decks. It's bookended with the Lower Decks crew where they're just like, oh, nothing ever happens without us knowing about it.
It's great because we get the resolution where Freeman manages to destroy her cliquids by basically they are actually allergic to compliments. So basically she just attacks them by putting on loudspeaker her just saying what a good job they did and how
you've got a really good vibe.
Yeah, that's it. I just give them all these compliments and they're like, and then they like beam away onto their ship and then escape. I will say I wrote a note here saying their ships look weird because they've got like little sticks coming out of them, and for some reason they reminded me of those like 90s birthday hedgehog things. You got tinfoil around an orange.
Oh my god, yeah!
And it was just a thing. It was a thing at all bloody parties in the 80s, whenever it was at like a working men's club or something.
We were so
and you're
poor.
like, this is a terrible idea. This looks shit, but I guess we're doing it,
So a great episode.
Oh, and then Admiral Freeman's anniversary. Yeah,
Admiral Freeman's anniversary, where he's actually appeared. He's made it to the Cerritos right there.
Is this the first time we've ever seen him in person?
No,
in the show.
No.
Oh, yeah.
They have met in person before.
Because I keep wondering if he's on view screen all the time. Yeah,
he is most of the time, but yeah, we have met him in person, and then they get their nice little holodeck free time in Gay Paris for their anniversary. And it's the fact that their PA organised it months ago. which is it's really sweet.
It's a great episode, and like I say, it demonstrates just how well all of the cast of characters, like you could literally do an episode purely about Billups. You could entirely do, and that's what Trek is about. It's about not having a main character per se. It's about having strong enough side characters or strong enough people that you go, hey, we're going to do a Barclay episode. Hey, we're going to do like a Garrick episode. Hey, we're going to do like that's the thing that I was joking with a mate the other day, like how insane DS9 is, where it just goes, hey, yeah, Nog can have his own episode. Garrick can have his own episode. Like, it's like what the actual fuck? Like, and
Yeah.
Next Gen could have had an Ogawa episode, but obviously
Yeah.
they barely gave Bev any, So.
Oh.
And when they did,
But no, it was a good episode. But I think we need to move
we
on.
need to talk, and this is when Chris has to leave. Oh, Chris.
Chris has to leave and avoid all the spoilers for episode 9, because episode 9, Fisher Quest, is part 1 of a 2-parter. And
well, to the conclusion.
the series finale of Star Trek Lower Decks. And oh boy, again, we don't get the Lower Deck crew per se in most of this episode. Because the Lower Deck crew are in the mess hall again. Boimler has now got a full beard, and they are going on about because Rutherford is trying to organize, like trying to sort out his Oculus implant to talk to the Cerritos, and it emits plasma and it nearly shoots Boimler. They make a comment like, "Careful, this is the only Boimler we've got left."
As in, they've got multiple. They've had multiple in the past.
They've had multiple, and then they bring Tallinn up to speed to basically say that yes, there was a transporter accident. We had William Boimler, who was on the Titan, but he died. Also, they thought, and as we saw a couple of seasons ago, he actually lives, and he's now with Section 31.
Does it say that explicitly?
Well,
actually, no, we get an episode, don't we?
Yeah, we get the badge.
Yeah, okay.
A Section 31 badge. So Boimler speculates that if he was alive, he would probably be doing some cool shit right now. And then the scene just like zooms away from the Cerritos, goes into another dimension, into another parallel universe where we see a Defiant class ship, where we see Captain William Boimler of the USS Aximander.
Hold on, is it actually Defiant class?
Yeah.
Oh wow! So the Defiant was the Defiant of the Defiant class.
Yeah, it was the prototype.
Okay, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was just because I always get caught out by this because you are a massive ship nerd along with Mike Overton from Clone Star, and you're doing, what is it, Dry Dock?
We are doing Dry Dock, where we are reviewing the Fan Home collection at the moment. So yes, we are. Someone might say a rather hefty ship nerds.
Massive ship nerds.
It is a Section 31 variant of the Defiant class, whereby it is black and the ram scoops are blue instead of red. So it is definitely the Bussard collectors, which collect various types of gases. They collect various types of gases and dark matter to fuel the engines, which is actually a real scientific principle that is to be considered in the future on warp drive ships if they ever get to that point, because it is a real thing. But yes,
I love it though that Trek science is based upon real world science, but it's all theoretical. But it's like, wow, okay, if this principle was true, then this could be true. It's wonderful stuff. But but I like that it's a Defiant class. It's a nice little nod to DS9, but there are quite a few lovely nods to DS9 in this episode. Actually, to be fair, what I said, you know what I said? I was speaking to the wonderful Glenn from my other podcast, Girl Global, and we were just talking, and he's been watching all of Lower Decks, and he's like a big fan of Lower Decks, but he's not a fan of Trek, so he hasn't watched other Trek. And we were having a brief discussion about like, you can enjoy this without needing to know normal Trek, and it's the joy of Lower Decks that he's managed to enjoy this episode without getting all of the references. Yeah. And and it never struck me, you know, because obviously loads of people are like, oh yeah, yeah, Lower Decks is just fan service, and you're like, no, it's good writing.
Yeah.
It's a good show, it's good writing, and then the references are just like the cherry on top if you get them, if you're like a huge fan, you know.
This is a very self-referential and meta episode where it's obviously about the multiverse, but we are introduced to Captain Boimler's crew, who are T'Pol, who is it's the actual T'Pol, it's Jolene
Actual
Blalock.
T'Pol.
Jolene Blalock, after
Yeah.
20 years of just not being T'Pol, barely going to conventions, barely doing any interviews, stepped back into the role of playing T'Pol. But this is a T'Pol who was married to Trip Tucker for 63 years, which should have been Prime because the last episode of Enterprise never happened. We get
Hey, we don't. Yeah, like fuck that episode.
we get Curzon Dax
I love this.
from a reality where his symbiont was not passed on.
I love though that they brought Curzon Dax back because it's like we never get to see Curzon Dax. We get to see one episode where Odo is possessed by Curzon Dax,
Yeah.
but then we kind of see a sort of a hybrid where basically they say due to a problem because he's like a shapeshifter, it's basically a mix of his personality and Dax, so he's a lot more mellow than Curzon would have been.
Yeah.
So we never, and then all we see of actual Curzon is him as an old man dying when the symbiont's being passed over, and then we hear stories of him, but then the stories don't really gel with the sort of the nicest kind, nice-ish kind of guy that we see with Odo. And you're just going, hang on, wasn't he meant to be this crazy warrior bloke who could like get really drunk all the time, was really angry, and then sort of like won loads of respect from Klingons and stuff? And then this episode basically goes, yeah, here's the Dax as you've wanted to see. Here's the Curzon that you've wanted to see.
Badass.
Yeah, an old nutter basically,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. He's basically like I want to say human, but he's like a Trill Klingon, exactly how you expect him to be, basically.
However, the next people introduced, I'm gonna let. I'm just no. I will deal with them. Yeah. I want you to talk about the next two characters that are introduced. Go.
The next characters who get introduced are something incredibly special, I think, for the fan base because it's like righting a wrong in Trek sort of lore, because what we see is the two other crew members we have are Elim Garrick from DS9 and Dr. Julian Bashir as a hologram from who we know from DS9, but they are a married couple. So we finally get. Now, I don't know what the shipping name is, because the problem is we were saying it in text and then I said it out loud, and calling them Gashir seems...
So apparently
apparently
it's close.
Garashir.
Garashir.
Yeah, I think Gashir sounds rude, basically.
Gashir number 4,
he's got
please.
Right Gashir on him. Oh, look at his Gashir. But yeah, that's what I've been saying all day, and then realizing I must sound like a lunatic. But yeah, Garashir is what they call it.
Garashir.
Could it not have been like Barack?
Barack.
As in Obama. Barack Ogawa. Oh my god. That's why it's a threesome. Barack Ogawa is basically like Elim Garrick, Julian Bashir, and Nurse Ogawa just smashing together.
Woo, who needs a candle?
Fully two-vixed.
Fully two-vixed. So yeah, we get to see Garrick, who is the ship's surgeon, as well as Dr. Bashir. And
now,
then
to explain more about why this is so important, it's the fact that if you haven't listened to our episodes before, in terms of gay and queer representation in Trek, it was very much something that felt natural in DS9 for Garrick, and because the way Garrick chose to, Andrew Robinson chose to play Garrick was very flirty. It was very camp. It was very sort of like, like very camp, and it had him flirting with Julian the first time they meet, and Julian being very sort of, unsure about it. But then they get this wonderful friendship together where they're eating dinner together and stuff. They're sharing stories together. And there's this sort of like, closeness to them. And then obviously because it was 90s Trek, they were like, we can't do this. So they basically went, okay, what we'll do is we'll make Bashir have straight interests, and oh, actually, he's just got a friendship with Miles now, so we can distance him from Garrick, and oh, Garrick's got a female love interest. See, he's not gay at all, and whatnot. And then they did all this, and it just didn't really feel right. It just felt very forced, and like a producer stepped in, saw that what they were doing, and was like, no, 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 don't be doing this in the 90s.
Well, this is the thing.
And it,
Andrew Robertson clearly stated in his interview on the Shuttlepod show that he played
yeah.
Garrick as a homosexual.
He was like, he got the script, looked at it, and he was like, "Oh, that's what this character is. That is
Yeah.
how this character is written."
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey, I'm a Cardassian. Oh, look at this pretty young thing or whatever that's come aboard," kind of thing. Like, "Oh, let's try my luck," kind of. And it is he plays it exactly like that, and it's great.
And he did it under the noses of the producers, who were completely and utterly unaware that he was doing it for years as well. This is the thing. This was years.
And then the writers were obviously trying to put it in that kind of direction. And then obviously there's a very definite moment in DS9 where it's like, nope. Okay, let's fix that. Let's not let that happen.
But it's always been
then,
a fan
since
theory,
then, it's always been a fan theory where everyone has shipped them together and gone like, hey, they should have got together. That is like the most natural progression of those characters. And therefore, in sort of fan fiction and stuff, it's always been the case. And even to the point where I think it was like a couple of years ago, I think it was during lockdown, that basically the two actors, Alexander Siddig and Alexander Robinson, basically read gay fan fiction of Julian and Garrick like together as their characters, and they were like, yeah, we're making this canon. So what this represents in Trek lore is this is canon. This is like Garrick and Bashir
in this
being gay
universe,
lovers is canon now.
In like a certain universe, that it is canon that these two actually got together. Like they are married, they are happy, they are in love, and it's righting a wrong that has been there for the last 30 years. And some might say it's fan service, some say that it is, like I said, it's righting that wrong. It's something that should have been the natural progression for both characters that we just never ever got, because like you said, 90s. So we've got it now. And
but this is the ludicrous thing. It's like, it's literally the lesbian episode that we get in like DS9 was like, people were shocked. People were phoning in, being like, "Oh, I can't believe you got this kind of smut on TV," and like, and the producer was like, "Oh, it's a lot to try and get away with," kind of thing. And it's just crazy thinking about it. You're like, it's literally a kiss, and it's so beautifully handled, and yet people are still complaining about it. And you realize how difficult it was back in the 90s. But it's no, I'm sorry to be a excited little gay, but this made my year. I think just basically just going, finally it's canon in a sense,
So
and the craziest thing that sorry, I'm gonna keep going on about this. It's the weirdness of their relationship, because we don't know what universe Bashir is from, but it's clearly a universe where they were going to make all of the emergency medical holograms using Bashir in that episode, but then obviously gets scuppered in DS9 because they find out about him being genetically altered and his parents lying to Starfleet. But this is a universe where obviously that didn't happen, and therefore he was made the emergency hologram and now exists as all holograms, I think. But then the Garrick, this is a Garrick who is a surgeon in Starfleet, but then seems to have the entire backstory of the Garrick we know and love from DS9. As in, he existed on DS9, he knew everyone from DS9, he knew the promenade and whatnot. So either it's the Garrick, and after ruling the Cardassian Empire after DS9, spoilers, but you should have watched it by now, he joins Starfleet and becomes a surgeon, or it's a universe where rather than becoming a tailor, he becomes a surgeon because Bashir's not on the station or something, and then joins Starfleet.
I would posture that it is a Garrick that was on DS9 not as a tailor but as a medic, became a surgeon, and maybe that's how he became infatuated with Bashir. So say like if he
Yeah.
was on Turok Nor, right? So he was on the Cardassian station, he was the medic. They left, he stayed along, and then maybe in their universe, Starfleet came in and Bashir and Garrick worked as a medical team. He became infatuated with Bashir, but in that universe, it was never reciprocated. And then he's found another
That was a
Bashir.
universe where what's his name? Mike? No. Oh, what's his name? The guy who like kept doing all of the sort of cock blocking in the 90s.
Rick Berman.
Yeah, where it was
Yeah.
that was a dimension without Rick Berman, basically.
So he's then found a holographic Bashir from another universe where they both fell in love and then they have got married. And for me, it's just like it's two souls traversing space and time to find each other, and it is
It's cute. It's really cute
so
because
adorable.
because obviously the canon that sort of like the actors have come up with now and they've kind of agreed between them is that after the events of DS9, at some point they get together. You know, so they're basically somewhere down the line they get together, and that's not official canon. That's just the actors being like, "That's how we want to believe it happened." You know, like it ended
if
up.
we ever got if we ever got Star Trek Legacy, could they do it?
Well, you know what? You know what really pleased me, okay, is that sometimes, like Lower Decks has been a bit guilty of this, where they've got the old actors back and you've realized that they can't talk the same way anymore.
Yeah.
Like when they got Quark in, it was very much that Quark didn't sound the same because you could tell that he was recording without the prosthetics.
Yeah.
So the lisp, the little kind of lisp that not is not as bad as Brunt, but like the little voice bits that Quark has is a lot of the outfit.
Yeah.
And then you realize when he was voicing stuff, he didn't sound the same. Whereas Nana Visitor sounded the same. But then, like, wow, like, yeah, the Andrew Rudson and Alexander Siddig sound
Exactly the
same,
same.
and it's.
Yeah.
I thought that they were actually using samples of them from the episode to do lines, and I was like, no, they can't be. But then there's another guest star in this episode later on who does sound a bit older. They have changed, but then we realize they are much older. They are like about yeah.
Well,
But
the
we'll
next
get into that. We'll get into
the
that.
next character that we see, the Axiomander detect an escape pod after sealing some fissures. They beam the survivor of the escape pod on board, and it is Harry Kim. Finally, after 9 episodes, we get to see Kim, and the first words of Boiler going, "Another fucking Kim." To which we find that most of the crew, the Axiomander, are Harry Kim. Right there, most of the crew are Harry Kims.
It's a ship entirely operated nearly by Harry Kims to the point where they call themselves Kim Crew.
The Kim crew! But what makes this Kim different?
Oh,
He is a fully fledged lieutenant. So when he's introduced to the crew quarters and you just see all the Kims there, they're just like, wait a minute! He's got 2 pips! And he's just like,
I love it though that they're having this discussion in the crew in the quarters and stuff about the fact of like all of the Harry Kims. They're just like, you know, like did you ever get home from like did you ever just stay in the Delta Quadrant? And there's only one of them that actually did. Like that's how unlikely it was that they weren't going to get home. But then like what you know, and it's a bit weird though because you have a few of them that are going, oh, what you never got to be in the captain's chair, whereas we had that quite a lot in Voyager where
Yeah.
everyone else went on a mission and Harry Kim literally was captain.
yeah.
Like, you know, in the captain's chair and stuff. And it's like, that's kind of surreal that he is literally an ensign that is a captain, you know?
So the fact that, again, another like fan... should we say bugbear is that Kim was never promoted in the 7 years, and the fact that just Kim says in this one scene, wait, you are all still ensigns, that's fucked up. And it's just like, yeah, at least they acknowledge it.
You know what this episode is? This episode, and I know what we've said previously while we've been covering this series, is that they didn't know they were going to get cancelled. They weren't writing it to be a final season. This episode, well, these previous 2 episodes feel very much, and like the first episode, I think, very much feel like they're tying up loose ends.
Yeah.
This feels like Biden pardoning his son before he leaves office. You know, basically just being like, oh, well, while I'm here, let's just sort this out. Okay, Harry Kim has been promoted. Uh, you know, Garak and Bashir do get together and are sort of canonically gay or bisexual in the Star Trek universe. Oh, and also, this is what happens to. We'll mention it later, but another
Yeah.
famous character from a movie, and it just feels kind of cool that they're just doing this. They're just like going, "Hey, cool, we're fleshing out the other characters more. We're giving everyone time to do things. We're answering questions that weren't there, you know, that
But
have
they are.
needed answering, and then they're adding to canon. I think,
But they are doing it in a clever way where it's just like, yes, but this is a quantum reality and these people are from different quantum realities. So although we might not get what we want in our prime universe, this actually occurred in this universe, in this universe, in this universe. And they've all been
Well,
brought together onto this ship to fight. Well, not fight, but to find out why these quantum fissures are opening all the time, which brings us on to the next person that they find when they're trying to seal a fissure. They see a shuttlecraft trying to warp through. It's about to blow up. They beam him up, and it's an engineer mariner. And Boimler, who has just been absolutely sick to death of Kim's multiverses, and he actually says, I'm trying to find it here, it's all derivative, repetitive remixes of things we already know, which is a direct shot fired to like Star Wars, the Marvel, DC, everything like that. It's a direct shot, but he's feeling it because he's sick of it. He just wants to explore the galaxy with his friends, and you can see in the way he sits, the way he's conducted himself. He's got, 5 o'clock shadow. He's clearly tired of all this. And when he sees Mariner arrive, his face just lights up because it's a semblance of normality that he has not had. It's a semblance of familiarity that he has not had so far. All right, she's a different Mariner, and we find out that she's more of an engineer who likes to play it safe and doesn't take a risk. But
very different from the normal Mariner.
But his familiarity is still there. And I love the fact, because we've glossed over it, but he's like, we need to find out who it is. Oh, it's going to be like a Borg Kirk or a Mirror Universe or a human Worf.
Yeah.
And it's
a reverse Picard, which sounds like a sexual activity. I'm going to give it that. Like, surely a reverse Riker is when you don't get your leg over.
I'm trying to think. Picard in reverse is Drakip.
Drakip.
Is it Drakip?
That's what the name. They should have been really cheery. Like cheesy. You know how in like the Castlevania games, like the character of Alucard is Dracula the son, and it's just Dracula backwards, and it's that's what they should have done rather than Shinzon. They should have had as a
Drakip. Yeah, Luke John Drakip.
But I do like, though, that there are shots are fired at the concept of multiverses, where it just goes, hey, it's just lazy, because you just go, whoa, look, you can fit all of the different possible things in, and it's all just crap, and oh, look, it's this character, but they're slightly different, boring. And it's kind of a shot at Marvel at this kind of reliance on multiverses.
Well, this is what Deadpool and Wolverine did as well.
Yeah, that's it. Like, really well. Like, and they're both really good parodies of going, this is kind of lazy writing when you can just have anyone coming back to life and doing anything all the time. But it is funny, though, that we basically, like, because obviously Trek has always had the mirror universe, which kind of does this, where we get like an evil Kira, we get an evil Worf, we get an evil, like, Kirk and stuff. Do we get an evil Kirk?
Yeah. Hi, how do you?
It's been so long since I saw it. It's like, but it's all of that stuff where it kind of used it sparingly, because there's literally about 6 Mirror Universe episodes.
In total, there is not a lot. Discovery really went to town on the Mirror Universe.
Oh, well, yeah. I may not have seen most of them. But, well, actually, no, it did do that. All of season 1 was a Mirror Universe.
Half of season 1 was Mirror Universe. Yeah, it was. Yeah. They went to town on the.
But other than that, they've been very sparing with Trek.
Yeah.
Just desperately trying to save my claim there. So, yeah. Well, if we just ignore half the evidence, you can see that I'm totally right. So shut up, everyone.
But anyway, Mariner, engineer Mariner, who likes to play it safe, is having dinner with Boimler, and Boimler's basically just reiterating how he misses Tendi, Rutherford, Boimler, and he is clearly just very weary of his duties at the moment of these quantum fissures and trying to seal them, trying to find out who is causing them. And Mariner realizes that. Mariner explains that they were tracking him, and she actually has the ability to locate who is causing them, because again, real world science comes in, where if you treat every universe as they have a finite amount of energy, if there is too much energy, it has to be dispelled somewhere else. It cannot contain it. And that is how she is able to track it, because if they open a portal here, it has to open another portal somewhere else, and that's how they're able to travel, because the energy is moved to another universe. And that's how quantum dimensional travel is. That's how they are able to do that to another universe. So they basically work out that when they open one fissure, another fissure opens up in another part of space. So if the Axiomanda opens up a fissure themselves, they will have to come through that from another universe to this one. And it works, and it brings in a mysterious looking ring ship.
It looks awfully familiar, does it not?
Looks very awfully familiar, but I will get into that. And they go into hot pursuit, but as they are in pursuit, the ring ship opens up another dimensional fissure, and they try and go through it. And Curzon, being Curzon, the gung-ho, balls first, shoot first, ask questions later dude that he is, he's just like...
I fucking love that we get Curzon fleshed out, and they're an absolute dickhead. Exactly how we expected them to be.
Exactly how he's expected. When they are between universes and they're going after the ring ship, and he fires at them as they are traveling through it, it just
Boimler's like, hey, don't shoot, and he's like, fuck off. He's like, no, I'm gonna do it anyway.
But
I do love that though, because he does shoot them, and it does actually work. It causes them to have to force land on this planet, like crash land on this planet. And I think, what is it, T'Pol says? Or T'Pol says something.
Curzon's insubordination may have allowed us to catch up or capture whoever is doing this, and all you hear is Curzon just go, "Told you," or something like that. Oh, you're welcome, or something like that. But yeah, so they
I wrote it down. I can't find it anymore. Oh bollocks! Yeah. Sorry. One thing we skipped it. I've just seen my notes though, where we did get a line when Mariner first comes on board. The first thing she says after hugging Boimler is like, "It's like Boims. I think that's T'Pol."
Another thing that we miss as well,
like almost referencing how iconic it is that they got her back.
Yeah.
Like.
Another thing that we miss as well is T'Pol and Curzon having a conversation in the mess hall where
being very, very different people.
Very
logical Vulcan.
Very frosty, and it's almost like they do not get along with each other at all. But yeah, so they land...
As you would expect them to be, because the fact is, like...
The chalk and cheese.
Yeah, like, I don't think Dax has ever had any Vulcan friends.
Ooh.
Yeah, like even
she had a crush on
doesn't
Spock.
Really. Yeah. Oh no, she had a crush on Spock.
Yeah.
But she never went out with him. She went out with McCoy. Well, who was it? Which one of her?
One of the gymnast.
McCoy. It was the gymnast. Yeah.
Yeah. Went out with. No. If you can remember that, yeah. So they land on the planet and they go after this ring ship. It's a boggy planet. First time we've ever saw a Defiant land. It was always capable of landing. In the technical manual, it has the ability to land.
I love how every time they land on a planet in DS9, it's always a shuttlecraft. But it's because the main plot in DS9 is they've got stranded on a planet, and they're like, well, it couldn't be the Defiant then. It's like they couldn't get lost on a planet in the Defiant.
So they are going after. Oh, excuse me. I have had an exhausting week. I apologize. So they're going after the ring ship, and they are they come face to face with these cute little salamander type aliens.
They look like axolotls, don't
They
they?
look like
That's what they look
Moopsy
like.
a little bit. Yeah, they do look like Moopsy a little bit.
Well, that gets referenced in this episode.
Yes.
Moopsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mariner's like, oh, I know these. Oh, they're so cute. He's just like, hi, how you doing? And it's just like immediately razor teeth start showing and they get captured. Taken into prison where the Kims are in one cell and the rest of the crew are in the other.
Yeah.
I love though the next scene we get to encounter the actual crew of the ship that they have been chasing.
Yeah. They get taken to prison. So basically they all get captured. They get taken to a prison cell and then they discover that they're not alone in this prison cell because who else is in there?
Lily Sloan from Star Trek First Contact. I can't believe they brought her back. I cannot believe.
I'm genuinely shocked. Like, out of all the characters, like, it's like we had in the last season where you just like, it's like they just went, who is the most unlikely but welcome character we could bring back? You know, it's like Ogawa or something. Obviously, sadly not possible now, but it's the fact of like, it's on that list of fan favorites, but who, you know, like you weren't expecting.
But they say, like, Mariner's like, I know who that is. And she's like, oh, holy shit, Boimler, that's Lily Sloan who helped create Warp Drive. And she's like, I have no idea what Warp Drive is, but I helped create the quantum, like, slip drive or the quantum universe.
What's it called? Quantum something drive.
Quantum something drive. But she is from
Quantum reality drive.
Quantum reality drive. She's from a universe where they travel. They didn't invent warp drive. They travel with the ability of slipping through quantum realities.
Because we never see their ship doing warp.
No, we never do.
It's always impulse. Because if you go through the singularity, if you go through the rifts in warp, that's how you get destroyed. Like that's what happens to Mariner's ship. So it makes sense that they're like, hey, this quantum reality drive doesn't work with warp,
but they
we don't know what
actually,
that is.
Yeah, they don't actually know what warp drive is, which is really interesting considering they've got Vulcans there. And it's just like, how did they get there? But
the Vulcans are like, we're not going to tell you. You know,
but it's explained that this like overarching story in this season, they are not the enemy. They are not bad guys. They are just literal explorers exploring different realities and learning about humanity and civilizations in these different realities. But they did not know that what they were doing was inadvertently causing damage and ripples in these universes.
Yeah, because basically every time they open up a rift to travel to another universe, it's creating a secondary rift somewhere else that'll need to get shut. And and Boimler can't really accept this because he's basically like, hang on, we've had to tidy up your mess all this time. We're sealing all these bloody rifts and whatnot.
Yeah. We get Garak and Bashir arguing about where they are going to live after the mission is over, which reality they are going to live in.
I love that this whole plot like is just the most beautiful thing because, you know, when we talk about, hey, you want two characters to be shipped together, you've got to be realistic about this. And they are a couple that would just argue constantly because that's what they're like. You know, it's the fact of, because Garak is just way too argumentative and he just loves causing conflict. And I'll sum it up now, okay? The little tiny plot that we get with Garak and Bashir throughout the whole episode is that they're arguing about where they're going to live and when they settle down, what reality they're going to be in. Are they going to be in Bashir's reality? Are they going to be in Garak's reality? Or does it not really matter? And they have a big sort of argument about it and stuff. But then at the end, it basically turns out with Garak being like, oh, well, I'm not that fussed. We'll work out where we're going to be. And Bashir's like, what? Then why were we arguing about it? And he's like, because it's more fun. And it's like, and it's pure Elim Garak, where it's just the idea of like, I mean, remember the episode of DS9 where he's just like, you know, Garak, is there anything you need me to do? And he's like, okay, in my tailor shop, go round to the back, okay, locate this secret brick, remove the brick. Inside that brick, you will find a Cardassian data rod. I want you to eat it. And Bashir's like, are you serious? He's like, no. And it's just this perfect little Garak just fucking with people because that's what he does. And I absolutely love it. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Sammy, my
Welcome
queen.
to the chat. Sammy.
You are my queen. But yeah, so they Garrick takes it upon himself to save the crew because obviously these salamanders are getting onto the ship, and Bashir's just like, look at the mud there traipsing through our sickbay.
But I do love though that it's the typical Garrick thing where Garrick's like, oh well, I'll just go and fight them off, and Bashir's like, no, you're not a fighter, and he's like, well, and
You're a
it's
surgeon. I am a surgeon, but I am many things, and it's
yeah. And then we basically cut to Garrick murdering everyone, like yeah, in a typical sort of I'm totally not an ex-spy.
yeah, judo
Basically ends
chops
up
a salamander.
yeah, like it kills everything, and it's brilliant. And he's just like, what's the line he says? He says something like oh, I've forgotten. It's like, oh yeah,
Oh.
he karate chops it from the back and then says, I've never been one for face-to-face combat," alluding to the amount of people he's assassinated.
So yeah, so he frees Lily's crew and Boimler's crew and the Kims, and they all start running towards the Beagle, because essentially what they need to do, they need to get the Beagle off because they need to do repairs essentially. So
Yeah.
they need to repair the Beagle. The
They haven't
Beagle,
finished it yet. It's totally buggered, but yeah.
the Beagle is another homage to a. This is such a deep lore reference. It is unbelievable. So, in 1979, there was a book called The Official Star Trek Spaceflight Chronology, charting spaceflight from 1969 all the way to 2180 or something like that. And for about a decade, it was the official canon of the Star Trek universe from 1969 to the 22nd century. What happened, how we got to warp drive, and everything like that. In the book, it says how Zevran Cochrane broke the warp speed barrier on the Bellerophon. Beautiful art, very, very beautiful art, very Ralph McQuarrie art type. That
Yeah,
when he did
Sammy,
Star Wars.
we're going deep. We're going.
We're gonna go
deep
deep.
right
We're
now.
gonna go.
We're gonna go fully deep.
You'll be able to feel it in your tonsils. So, so within that book, it was lovely illustrations. I'm trying to remember where the hell it. Oh, it's in a box. But it's got lovely detailed illustrations of all this like lineage of ships all the way through cruise liners, and one of the ships is called the USS Enterprise, and within the book, it is a cruise liner. It is a space liner. And it's a Declaration class space liner like this.
Whoa.
All right. So this is the USS Enterprise from the mid 22nd century. And in the book, it's a space liner. It was the first warp ship to be called Enterprise, and it used to ferry people to exotic, faraway destinations on this liner and show them everything like that. This design was in Star Trek The Motion Picture, very briefly on a screen, and then it was forgotten about until Star Trek Enterprise. It was completely wiped from canon, and then in Star Trek Enterprise, they brought it back as the XCV-3330 ring ship. So this is Vulcan warp technology. So there's no nacelles. It's literally rings that generate the warp drive that propels them. So this is how deep Lower Decks have gone. They've taken a design from a book in the 70s that was then an image in the motion picture that was then another image in Star Trek Enterprise, and then turned it into an actual canon ship that travels through quantum realities.
And I think that's wonderful though, that they can do that they can just be like, hey, look, it's fan service on all this all these different levels, but for me, it's just a fun looking ship, like that's the thing.
For
I can
people
still
like
enjoy
me,
the episode.
yeah, but for people like
I'm
me,
not a massive fucking ship nerd.
well, tough
Well,
shit.
actually, no, I am a massive ship nerd because I've been talking about how much I enjoy Garrick and Bashir being shipped together. So yeah,
But it's Lower Decks doing what Lower Decks does best. It's like tipping a hat to those specific parts of the fandom that will look at that and go, we know that, we know exactly what it's from. But they get to the Beagle, and
Hold on, I just want to say I love how we've got Sammy in the chat because I was talking about Sammy earlier today about like how we need to get her on an episode of the podcast, but like,
She's
what
doing
would it
Nemesis.
be?
She's doing
Well, that's it.
Nemesis.
She's
Yeah.
doing Nemesis, but I was like, oh, there's got to be a horror episode we can get her on. Like, imagine if
Nemesis.
we got like,
It's
well,
bad
that's only
enough.
because of Tom Hardy's acting, but
Oh!
that he is English,
I got-
and
I
yet
got-
that English accent is one of the worst things I've ever heard. Hold on, hold on.
Alright.
Oh! Would you believe?
Oh,
But I was thinking like Genesis. If we had like Genesis from TNG, or if we had the Empok Nor from DS9.
Oh,
Like,
the Vidians from Voyager.
yeah. Like one of the actual horror things. Then get like sort of, and then force fucking like, I know we'll be able to get Sammy watching it, but we force fucking Dan to watch it. We're like, come on, come on,
A
Dan,
monster,
watch Trek
monster
for us.
crossover. Definitely,
Yeah.
the Vidians are 8472. Definitely.
They're so creepy. Anyway, sorry, that was a random
Anyway,
thing. Yeah.
so they are repairing the Beagle. The crews are working together to repair the Beagle. We get a nice little thing between Curzon and T'Pol as they're repairing it, and then we get one between Boimler and Lily, who are was it Boimler, Lily, and Mariner, who are trying to repair like the quantum reality drive, and Mariner is absolutely fascinated about how they do it, and Boimler is just like, why would you want to go to all of these different realities when you can just explore new worlds and new civilizations? And Lily sort of tries to explain that, like, yes, we could do that, but the journey is like exploring humanity and how humanity progresses in these different realities. And we see that Lieutenant Kim, is overhearing a conversation, and it's taken outside. Did you not know this, Sammy? Dan loves Trek. Wow.
I didn't know Dan. I didn't know Dan was a Trek fan. To be fair,
So the conversation is taken
to
outside.
be fair, I
where-
refuse to believe there's anything that Dan isn't into. When you've seen pictures of her house and you're just like, like her house is literally the Chinese guy's shop from the beginning of Gremlins. That, it's literally. I would not be, if I went round to Dan's, if I dared travel south, I would go in there and expect to hear like a gizmo singing or something in a little cage.
So the conversation is carried on outside, where she's basically explained that she's traveled to realities where humanity have built rings around the sun, and where humanity has done all these marvelous and wonderful things, and that their goal as explorers is to learn from these versions of humanity to make themselves better and to learn. And it sort of parallels what the Prime Universe does with exploration, where they seek out new life and new civilizations because they want to learn from these different cultures, from these different aliens, to make themselves better, to gain this knowledge, to make humanity and the Federation as a whole a better place for everyone. And it's interesting to see a different take on that.
Well, it is. It's really fascinating because obviously it's like Lily is basically, look, it's about the internal journey. It's about it's about going to a different reality, like a different dimension, and seeing a different version of humanity and what they've managed to achieve. It'd be, like the same way that if we sort of got our society and we're like, wow, here's a society where, I don't know, they made communism like actually work. Oh wow, humanity's capable of that. Or oh wow, what if we invented nukes in the Victorian age? What would we do? What would we be like now and stuff? And it's a fascinating concept. Like, and it's something that I don't think I've seen a lot of in like science fiction. Like the idea of other dimensions informing you more about things because of their differences, rather than just, oh, it's a totally new alien race that we can find out more about existence,
It's sort of, I don't know if you've read the books based on the series, they read the books that created the series Man in the High Castle.
I can't read.
Well, you are from
It's all just been elaborate guesswork up until now. It's just been actually fucking phenomenal luck, if I'm perfectly honest. That driving test.
I read the dictionary once. Spoiler alert, the zebra did it. The second joke of the night, people.
Two. Oh, with your jokes, Mr. Goodwill. You're really
very relaxed the questions. So, but yeah, Man in the High Castle. I mean, Philip K. Dick basically says that
Philip OK Dick. I think, it's
he
like it's not an exceptional one, but it'll do the job.
I employ everybody. I implore, sorry, everybody.
I employ everybody.
I employ everybody with my 68p.
You get on search for Trek, and then suddenly you've employed everyone.
I'm incredibly poor. I've got 68p left. A week left to payday.
But then it's a fucking long one. Oh, my mate was talking to me the other day about how depressing it is that we've got that. Yay, we get paid early. Oh, it has to last till January, till February, and it's like, oh.
But so I implore everybody to read up about Philip K. Dick, because his inspiration for Man in a High Castle is slightly tapped, where he didn't make it up. He believes that he has witnessed these other realities. And Man in a High Castle is a reality where the Americans and the Europeans lost the Second World War, and America is split up into two separate territories. One is German controlled, and the West Coast is Imperial Japanese controlled. And it is fascinating, horribly paid off at the end.
Oh no, is it?
Much better. It's much better in the book. But the
series... it doesn't pull a Game of Thrones, does it? Where
no,
they're just like,
No, because the books are complete. So it's sort of like...
I went down a YouTube... sorry, I keep interrupting. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole the other day, and it was basically talking about how he's never, ever going to finish Game of Thrones.
No.
Like, he's literally just like, well, I was thinking about finishing The Winds of Winter, but then I had a wank. And you're just like, oh, we're never going to get anywhere here.
It's very interesting, because in Man in the High Castle, the very first episode of Man in the High Castle, obviously this is Japanese controlled San Francisco, and there's an underground, there is a rebellion and everything like that. And this rebellion has sneaked this film canister out of like this locked restricted area, and they are playing this film canister, and this film canister shows 1945 Germany losing the Second World War and the bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they are going, this is clearly made up, this didn't happen, but the film is authentic. So we see in this where we've got two separate realities. So this is sort of my sort of take on this, and like I said, the books are far better than the show. Amazon dropped the ball.
Yeah, I think
the actors are brilliant.
Watching it in a weird way. I'm sure I started watching it, but it was one of those. Amazon is weird. Like, here's the 50th tangent of the episode, but it's the fact of like Amazon the other day. Okay, it gave me. I was watching. What was I watching? I was watching Paddington. Okay, on Amazon. I was like, Paddington, lovely movie, Paddington Bear, like comedy, directed by the guy who did The Mighty Boosh. It's all just like absolutely brilliant. Do you want to know what it played for me afterwards? Like, as the sort of, hey, here's what you'll like. Let's play. 1983 Nazi related movie, like supernatural thriller, The Keep, with Ian McKellen, where it went, that's suitable after you've watched Paddington.
I mean,
hope your kids are attending. Hope you're in the room with your kids when this happens. Like, I would have thought Paddington 2 might have been a wild choice for them to go with.
Well, very much like Germans in the 40s, in Paddington 3, they both travelled to South America. So we are.
Oh, he's a. Hold on, was the Führer and Paddington on the same U-boat?
Yes.
So, no, and what's her name? Aunt?
I'm sorry.
What's her name? Aunt such and such.
I'm sorry, right? I am sorry. I am going to say this now, right?
Chris has turned up with a perfect moment.
You have turned up with the most perfect point. I am going to say this now. There is, off the coast of Argentina, a derelict German U-boat, okay? This U-boat was outfitted for transatlantic travel to the coast of Argentina, where it was scuttled. Okay?
Does that just mean that they installed a cinema?
This is This, yeah,
We fitted it for transatlantic. Oh, we've got a cabaret on
it
Tuesdays.
it
It's
plays
lovely.
MasterChef on loop. The
Oh, Greg Wallace.
oh, hang on,
Oh,
oh,
oh, would you believe?
but right, this is real. Okay, this is real. There is a scuttled World War II German U-boat. Right, divers have
Good,
been
it got
down.
lost.
Divers have been down. No, no, no. Divers have been down. It is a specially outfitted U-boat designed for transatlantic crossings, designed to run on battery power, silent running across the Atlantic, right? The official line from the Argentine government. Are you ready?
Swamp gas.
This is a natural rock formation. I am everybody, you can Google this. The official Argentine response is this is a natural rock formation.
I honestly, what I have to say about that is it makes all of the marketing departments that we work with, who we think are all shit and terrible, it makes them look actually quite competent. If there's literally a propaganda ministry that's going like, I think this is gonna ride. You know, people are going to accept this. It's like swamp gas or weather balloons. You're like, why is there a metal weather balloon? Like, why?
If you want to,
That's the opposite of a balloon.
if you want to, honestly, I cannot recommend this channel enough because people think it's like really daft and silly, but the Y-Files YouTube channel, I cannot recommend this channel enough because
Is that hosted by Wybird from Playdays?
no, it's hosted
What
by
have they gone full conspiracy theorist?
It's hosted by AJ and a fish, but they go into conspiracy. No, honestly, they go into.
No, I'm
conspiracy
just loving the
theories.
idea of like Wybird being like sort of like it's all it's all a simulation. It's just like flat Earth theory. And he's just like, I think I'm going to get back on the bus.
But they go into conspiracy, all these conspiracy theories that you all know about, and the research they do. It's like they tell you the story and it's brilliantly told, but then they go, and this is why it's not possible. This is why this is debunked. This is why this is this. So it goes on about genuine conspiracy theories and the ones that you hear about. Like, do you ever hear about the one where it's like, have you ever seen this man who's appearing in everybody's dreams and stuff like that? And he tells a compelling story about how 8,000 people recognize him across the world, and it turns out to be a guerrilla marketing campaign created by someone. And
why would you want to market gorillas?
well, you never know. They do good glue. So, but the Y-Files recently released a video about the escape plan, and it was Operation. Oh, bugger me! Not Operation
Get the
Bugger
fuck
Me.
out of Berlin. Imagine that's the code name. Like we were very pressed for time, if we're perfectly honest. Like, you know.
It was. I cannot recommend it. It is youtube.com/the Y-Files. It is Operation Eagle Flight.
Okay, Eagle Flight.
Watch it because it is. They're not like a conspiracy nut or anything like that, but they use hard empirical evidence. They use logic. They use science. It's
one of those weird things though, with like loads of conspiracy stuff, but then you have stuff that actually exists that you can just point to, like the fact that when the FBI unlocked all their files, they've literally got reports being like, oh yeah, just keeping an eye on Hitler in what is it in like you know,
but this is the thing.
What the like. Why were they in Argentina keeping an eye on Hitler? Why is that an official FBI file?
The official. So there's two things.
He never ever went there, apparently. And it's just a bit like.
We'll get back to Lower Decks. We'll get back to Lower Decks in a minute. But fuck it, tangent.
Sorry, everyone watching.
This is where the viewers start creeping up. Yeah, this is where the viewers start creeping up.
I'm just gonna start drawing my image of Wybird as a conspiracy theorist.
So this is my last tangent, I swear. So Russia has the remains of that crazy German leader, right? In 2009, they finally capitulated and allowed DNA testing of the remains of the skull. The skull was of a female under 40.
So Hitler had a sex change in a bunker?
Apparently so. right?
Yeah. To be fair, I didn't expect them to be that progressive, but
They
well done. Actually, no, let's not applaud Nazi Germany. Ooh,
they
that's a bad vibe. But
the Russians denied it and said, nope, nope, this is his remains, and refused any further testing.
yeah,
The FBI then had a program tracking and hunting Hitler in South America, all
that
the way
makes it
around the
sound way
world
more
first.
exciting than it is.
Yeah,
Like
they
Hunting Hitler. That is a Netflix series. That is
no, it's an Amazon series called Hunters, but
Hunting Hitler.
no, it's literally honestly
No,
Amazon
but it's
series
literally it's like
Hunters.
Survivor. It's Hitler running through a forest, and you've got these guys with fucking nets coming
Al
after him. They're
Pacino,
like,
Al
catch that
Pacino,
German.
Al Pacino stars in the Amazon series Hunters, based in the 70s. Watch it, brilliant. However, so the FBI were tracking Hitler in Europe. There's loads of these documents and everything like that, and everyone turned around and said the same thing. Why were they tracking a dead person?
Yeah, they tend not to
The
be that
prevailing
mobile.
The prevailing theory is as follows: Operation Eagle Flight. He was snuck out of Berlin via the subway tunnels. He was transported to a airfield, I believe, north of Germany.
North Yorkshire.
North Yorkshire. So it was either, I can't remember where it was. He was flew to Spain, who then flew into the Canary Islands, where he was outfitted in a specially designed German U-boat, where they sailed
air miles in.
They sailed under silent running across the Atlantic to the coast of Argentina, where the U-boat was scuttled, and then
Silent running means they weren't allowed to put the cabaret on, right?
Silent running meant they had to watch the movie Silent Running all the way through the trip.
Oh, God, that's bleak.
They scuttled.
That is a bleak fucking movie.
They scuttled the submarine, and then he lived out the rest of his days, shall we say, in a Germanized village in Argentina, which is real. There's a real village.
The village exists
in Argentina that is German. I mean, this is like
Dusseldorf. It's one of those weird things where you just go, there's so much weird stuff where you're like, why would there just be a random ex-Nazi village in Argentina? Like, why would that be a thing? Like,
the people that lived in Argentina, in this village in Argentina, were obviously ex-Nazi members and a Parkinson's specialist. And Mr. Hitler,
as in, when we say Parkinson's, we mean the interviewer.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Hitler was famously, towards the later aspects of the war, was only famously shot from his right hand side, because his left hand was always.
Oh God, he had jazz
shaking.
hands.
Yeah, his left hand was always shaking. Right, an indicator.
Probably why they couldn't have the cabaret.
An indicator that he had Parkinson's disease. And this specialist left Germany for South America. Honestly, I cannot. This is the rabbit hole I go down when I have a mental breakdown, okay? And I've had about several this week, all right?
And here's me watching shitty fucking AI-generated Lord of the Rings videos. I'm so pissed off with them.
I cannot recommend the Y-Files enough for this video, because this was just like, oh. But
yeah,
I can't recommend it enough. Anyway,
okay, we'll find it.
Quantum realities.
Okay, so I need to. Okay, so I know Chris probably isn't here because I think they're streaming the Nerdy Up North guys, but it's the fact of now we need fan art. Okay, now we need Chris fan art of Bird as a conspiracy theorist. We also need Hitler and Michael Parkinson living in Argentina together
without the mustache. He shaved
we
the
need
mustache.
Hitler with jazz hands. We need Paul to be very upset at how demonetized we are because the amount of times we've mentioned Hitler.
Also,
in a close space of time.
Also, they had a child, and Eva Braun and the child did leave because the marriage broke down.
Oh, wait a minute. So what we're saying is that someone who looks a bit like Hitler somewhere in the world.
The fall of the ruler of Argentina in the late 50s, early 60s led to the evacuation of certain people from this German village as well.
I love though that there's all these little things where you're just like, can you explain this? And it's like, and this is the thing, all the conspiracy stuff is like stuff that like I watched what was it called, Ancient Aliens, like it was like a couple of months ago, and I've never had an episode of anything where I could confidently just say no to every single question asked. Where just
This-
like, could this marking on this wall be indications that like all of humanity was based upon alien genetics? No.
No.
Like every question I was answering that.
There
But
are
then there
interesting
is
aspects to that,
genuine
though.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's genuine stuff that exists that none of these conspiracy theories shows seem to go on to because they are genuine, like, yeah, this is very problematic. Like the existence of this is very worrying.
Fuck it.
So
I'm
it
gonna
makes
do
me
it.
wonder if a lot of the
I'm
chariots
gonna
of the
do
god
it.
stuff is what you're doing.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put a link to the channel on the chat. I'm gonna do it because if you guys want to go down a rabbit hole, this is the rabbit hole
Oh
we've got to
my
go
God.
down. There you go, right there. After this episode, go down that rabbit hole with me because
You
holy
actually put
shit,
it in the chat.
absolutely did.
Actually, let's stop this shit. I'm watching that.
Oh,
But,
hey,
yeah.
how long have you got? But yeah, so
So yeah, what were we talking about? Star Trek. What's
Star
that?
Trek, yeah.
What's Star
Right,
Trek?
back to the episode. We are on the Beagle, and Lily's going on about these different realities. And as she's discussing it, holy shit, it's nearly 2 hours. As she's discussing it, the Beagle starts taking off. We're back, baby.
That was the tangent to end all tangents, and I was like, "Oh,
Can you
well,
imagine
pretty
someone trying to
slow
clip
end to
that?
the year, you
Can you
know?
imagine someone trying to clip that and going, it's now 20 minutes, it's now 40 minutes, it's now...
Sammy's like, "Oh, I'm in such a. I can't wait to learn more about Star Trek. Amazing." And then
Sammy-
suddenly she's like, "Hitler's back."
Sammy, my love, if you want to go down this tangent with me, I will create an episode all about this because we will get demonetized, we will get put on watch lists, we will get
I'm just happy to
shut
be watched.
down. I think we need to do this as an audio podcast. I think we need to create the very first dedicated Nerdy Up North podcast, audio
Conspiracies
podcast.
up north.
Conspiracies up north, right?
The problem is I'm sure we talked about this, like when because we talked about like doing more sort of supernatural based stuff, but then
Yeah.
obviously with me being a massive cynic most of the time, it would just be with me being like, that's
That's
bollocks.
dust.
That's bollocks.
Dust.
But then yeah, it's one of those, oh, look at the orbs. You're like, that is dust. Like there is
Clean your
genuine
room.
stuff. Yeah, that's it. Vacuum. But it's not proof of an afterlife. It's proof that you need a new Hoover. But it's stop snorting Febreze in your bedroom. Anyway, it's but
Back to the episode.
oh god. Anyway,
You know.
yes.
Wow. You are great at asking the hard questions. Where's Lee?
No.
Back
That's
to the
it.
episode.
That's a hard question.
He's now got a Dolly Parton rip-off song on my Twitch channel. That's all I'm going to say.
I love it so much. Well, to be fair, I love that every time I message him on Messenger, I basically start the conversation with "Hey, Daddy," and it's normal now. It's just it's
Holy,
not no eyebrows raised at
holy.
all. I'm like, that's a thing.
Holy, holy, I'm begging of you, please don't suck that. So back to this episode, we see that
Hey,
the Beagle
Willie's
start...
2 syllables. Hmm.
We see that the Beagle is taken off from the planet, but the crew are on the surface. Who the hell is taking this ship? What the hell is going on?
Spoilers, it's the Harry Kims.
Spoilers, it's the Harry Kims. They are
Which
all...
actually sounds like a 70s band. It sounds like one of those
Harry
bands
and the
where it's
Kims.
literally, yeah, Harry and the Kims, and they're all like this weird family that you know gets beaten by the dad. You know
The
that
two Pippa.
the 70s trope of like child like bands.
So yeah, they make it. They run towards the Axiomander, but they are ambushed at the Axiomander by the salamanders.
They're axolotls, but that doesn't help in terms of making it easier to pronounce.
Well, this is the thing; they don't ask anything. So we joke number 3. We
My God, we'll get a good one. You know, like if you fire,
We'll get a
enough
good one
shots,
eventually.
one of them will hit good.
it'll stick eventually, much like a Vice story. But we, number 5, the
We're never going to get through this fucking episode.
We're never going to get through it. But they run to the Axiomander and they get confronted by all the axolotls, and Curzon's like, you guys go all ahead. This is my fun. This is my fun time. And we leave Curzon Dax.
The quote that we get from him is, calm down. Everyone's going to get their asses kicked.
Yeah. There's enough ass kickings for everybody. Leave the jokes to Kelly. No!
Oh, that's it.
Congratulations,
we'll
Kelly, by the way.
End for Kelly.
So they fend off the axolotls. They leave the planet's surface going after the Beagle. They cannot catch up to the Beagle. Excuse me. I'm so tired. I'm doing this live. Sue me. They catch... Curzon gets onto the bridge and he's limping a bit, and they're like, "Are you all right?" And he's like, "This is what I get for not doing exercise, not doing stretches, for warming up." So they are trying to get after the Beagle before it creates another quantum fissure, because the state that the Beagle is actually in, it could cause a soliton wave in every single universe.
Yeah. Basically, the ship is falling apart. Harry Kim has stolen it, like the Harry Kim that's a lieutenant.
Harry and the Kims.
Yeah, Harry and Kim. The lieutenant has basically hijacked it and stolen the other Kims against their will, and is basically going to take them to his universe, his dimension, so that they can actually all get promoted, because apparently that's a universe where Harry Kim can actually get promoted to higher than fucking ensign, which is the most ludicrous concept in Star Trek, and I love that it exists.
I love the fact that Mariner just goes, "Damn you, 2-Pip Kim!"
Yeah, 2-Pip Kim is just... The villain of the episode is literally referred to as 2-Pip Kim, because he has 2 pips on his collar because he actually got promoted. But it's the fact that the ship can't actually... If the ship goes into the rift, it will fall apart and explode, and exploding inside the rift will cause this thing that will go to every reality. So every single dimension will get consumed effectively by this rift eventually.
It will go to, so...
That's the best. I didn't fully understand all of this bit of the episode.
It's very tricky. Yeah, it's very tricky techie. Basically, if it goes in the current state that it's in, if they travel... through the rift on the Beagle, it will cause a soliton wave that will be triggered on every single quantum reality and cause the end of everything as we know it. So they can't make it in time. So Mariner suggests, Curzon suggests a micro warp, which is what we've seen in Star Trek quite a lot. Mariner goes to the engineering, increases the gravity around the warp core 10 times so they can do this. What I didn't write any notes. Okay, I just wrote Goodwill will explain this. He'll know what this is all about. So essentially,
I was that whole thing of going, yeah, you'll totally understand.
They increase the gravity. They increase the gravity around the warp core to reduce the overall mass of the ship to do a micro warp jump quick enough to intercept.
By lowering the mass of the ship, and it's a bit like the episode in DS9,
concentrating on mass in one mash.
Where I think it's a bit like where O'Brien manages to make DS9 less mass so it can move faster. So it can, because it's technically less mass, even though it hasn't actually changed, it can move faster with impulse and then still get through.
That's how warp drive essentially works on the same principle, where you create a bubble around a ship which reduces its mass in space and time, allowing it to travel at speeds exceeding the speed of light. Okay?
Yeah.
Basically defying Einstein's theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. So that has been my one explanation for that. So fuck it. I'm too tired. I'm not going to get into the science. If you want to do that,
when she lowers the mass of everything, the gravity in engineering is made is huge, so she gets crushed into the ground effectively. But then hologram Bashir, who's not affected by gravity, appears to save her. So it's a nice little kind of wink between them, but she was willing to sacrifice herself. So it's a bit of a minor character development that this version of Mariner that isn't particularly brave or reckless does this thing that potentially would kill her if she wasn't saved by Bashir doing it. And then Bashir is able to turn the gravity back on once they've actually made they've done the thing that they were doing. Yeah.
So they make it to the Beagle. The
Mm.
Harry Kims that are still on, you can tell that they are just absolute. They were there against their will.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a mutiny, a commutiny.
there's a mutiny or a cutiny if we're going to go from episode 2.
Oh.
There's a cutiny going on where the Kims don't agree with this. They don't want to go to Harry Kim's reality. He beams them off
Mm.
back onto the Axiomanda, and they are trying to convince Two Pip Kim to not do this. It will cause damage, and he's just like,
Yeah.
I can do this. I'm Harry fucking Kim.
Garrett Wang must have had a whale of a time doing this episode because he gets to voice tons of characters because he plays every single one of the Harry Kims.
Yeah.
But then the fact that he has this evil moment, he gets to play villainous, like bitter Kim, who like has this big screaming moment at the end, and yeah, I think they stop him, don't they? They actually
No,
do
they don't.
manage to. Well, they manage to stop him, but it still happens anyway. So they stop him too later, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
they stop him too late. There is a quantum reality soliton wave that goes through every single reality, and a decision has to be made because Lily
Well,
says,
it creates a huge rift. It creates a
yeah,
big red rift that we get to see, and apparently that is present in every single reality.
and
And then it will
Lily,
grow and
yeah.
destroy every single reality.
So Lily says that there is a solution to this. However, you have to direct, essentially direct energy at this rift. So every single rift goes into one universe, essentially dooming one universe to save every other universe. So a
Yeah.
decision has to be made. Do we all die, or does this one universe die? And whose universe should it be? And Boimler steps up and says, direct it towards my universe because they stand the biggest chance of saving the day. They stand the biggest
And
chance of stopping this.
and that universe is the prime
The
universe
prime universe.
of where our characters usually are. So the
Yeah.
characters that we've been following throughout this show is the where they direct this to. And so it potentially, and it's wonderful because it sets up the last episode of the series, which is also the last episode of Lower Decks because it
Yeah.
finished, this is the last season of it. It sets it up to go, the stakes are pretty high. They could genuinely go, this is why the show ends because
Yeah.
everybody dies and the universe gets destroyed or something. So they genuinely could do that, and it adds a nice bit of weight to the final episode. You know, after we were complaining that this whole 10 episode series was just meandering about, where it kind of had two strong episodes to start with, and then just went, here's lots of fun filler, but without really progressing the plot. And then now it's just gone, hey, bang, really important plot episode, and then it sets up the finale to be high stakes. It's
But
quite
he
fun.
sends they fire the wave, and then he sends a message to Prime Boimler, and he's just like, and Lily's like, will they be able to stop it? And he's like, yeah, sure, as long as he doesn't freak out or anything. And then we get all the way back to Prime Boimler, where he gets a message. He's just like, holy shit, we're all gonna fucking die.
Yeah, he
and
proper panics.
and starts panicking, and that's how the episode ends. It's a to be continued, but
Yeah.
what an
There
episode, man.
there are a lot of things that we've missed, though. We've skipped over the fact
Let's
that
get into them.
Dax gets hurt. Dax gets hurt.
Yeah.
I'm so tired as well. Sorry.
Yeah.
Dax gets hurt. So Curzon, sorry, I keep calling them Dax. Curzon Dax. Curzon gets hurt. Garrick tries to save them, but it turns out that he can't actually save the symbiont. And as foreshadowed earlier in the episode, where T'Pol mentions it, if because there's no other Trill like creatures on this ship, it means that they have no one that the symbiont can be transferred to, which means that Dax will die, and like
Yeah.
7 generations of Dax will just like all their memories will
just
be
die.
lost.
Yeah.
So what T'Pol does is to demonstrate that they're friends, and obviously Curzon's like, "Hang on, we're not friends. We hate each other," and she's like, "No, no, we are." Like and they've got a relationship of being frenemies.
It's a McCoy Spock dynamic.
Yeah, and it's really good that she's like, "No, no, we are friends." So T'Pol uses her psychic powers to basically take on the memories. What's it called? Catra.
The Katra.
It's the
Yeah.
yeah. to take on, and that's an Enterprise reference, but obviously T'Pol's whole thing is an Enterprise
it's a
reference.
Wrath of Khan Search for Spock reference.
Ah, right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But what happens is she takes on all of the memories and personality of Dax, and basically, I think it refers to them as backup. It
Yeah.
backs them up, basically, so that what she can do is she can pass them on to another symbiont at some point and carry on
Yeah.
Dax's legacy. But effectively, Curzon, we see Curzon die for a second time in Star Trek universe. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's there's loads of other stuff to mention, but we have been on for like 2 hours,
We
more than
really
two
have.
hours.
But Sammy does ask a good question.
Oh, yeah.
Can you watch this with little Trek knowledge? Yes.
Yes, this is what Sammy. This is what I was saying earlier on in the episode. My friend Glenn from the Girl Podcast messaged me before this because I posted on Instagram being like, "Hey, come and join us on the podcast," and I was basically mentioning it, and he was saying how much he enjoys Lower Decks because Lower Decks explains stuff and goes, "Hey, these are nice little Easter eggs if you get them, but they're not essential."
Yeah.
So, for instance, in this episode, we basically have it where Curzon Dax, who is a key character in Star Trek DS9, um, what it does is when it introduces him, it has a little bit of dialogue saying, "Oh, you've got a symbiont inside you, and if it dies, you will need, it will need to be passed on to another host, and there is no one here." So setting up that little plot thing, and it kind of does this where it kind of just explains enough for you to get through. So Glenn is a fiance have been able to enjoy Lower Decks without being massive Trekkies because it's just well written.
Yeah.
It's not like other shows where it goes, "Hey, the fan service is the only thing holding this together." It's like Picard was really like Picard season 1 and 2 of Picard, where you just like if it wasn't for the references, there's nothing really here
Yeah.
plot wise.
Yeah. It wouldn't be Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the fact of like this is very much like fun episodes, and if you get what that is, if you get what that's a reference to, it's a little little fun little thing. But yeah, you
It's
could
I
it's
I would highly
definitely
recommend
watch
it.
Lower Deck, Sammy.
Yeah,
So
I would highly recommend it. We did miss because like going on about the references, we did miss one little thing that Billups says in Upper Decks, where he's going on about how they've just renewed the bits in the ceilings of the bridge. Now, this is a reference to like when there's been battle damage and rocks start falling down.
yeah,
Apparently, they are actual rocks in the structure because they dispel certain things that emanate from the ship. So they're sort of
yeah,
like a Faraday cage that are used to like dispel stuff. And I'm just like, again, it's a tiny little thing that has always been mentioned. Like there's always like loose plaster or rock or anything. And we all know like it's cost effective, just styrofoam plaster, anything that they throw.
yeah.
But in Discovery, it's more like prevalent than ever in Discovery because it's an shot on 8K, widescreen,
Yeah.
big bridge, and you see these like bits of rock everywhere. And just with one line of dialogue, and this is what Lower Decks does so well, with one line of dialogue, it's just like, oh yeah, this is why this is this. And then it just moves on. And with that, it's like, it appeases like loads of Trekkies because it's just like, yeah, we'll just answer that. Like the whole Nick Lacano thing last year, the whole cetacean
Garrick and
observation.
Bashir now.
Garrick and Bashir,
Yeah.
cetacean ops, where it's like, yeah, we've got sentient mammals. You know,
Sentient whales,
sentient
and
whales
dolphins,
and
just
dolphins
as
because
crew
they are
members.
intelligent. We have found that they are intelligent species, so that is a thing. And it's like the tiniest little details that have always been in like beta canon or have never really been discussed. It's just like we're going to identify that, we're going to tackle that, and whether you like it or not, we're going to make it canon. Like I said, this tiny little reference of a ship from a 50-year-old book, and they've just gone, there you go, canon. And it's insane how they can just take these tiny little things.
But that's it. It's little things like little references. Like obviously you can enjoy the episode, but what we've had in these 2 episodes is we've effectively learned that the Par Wraiths are still around. The Par Wraiths still exist in the universe, and that's kind of a cool thing because they could be used for later plots and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we have it where basically Garrick and Bashir are canonically bisexual, so that even though they didn't get together in the Prime universe, well, yet maybe that'll happen. It's the fact of hey, these two characters are like, can have feelings for each other, and that is a thing that can exist in the universe. And we learn that, like, we get to find out more about Curzon Dax, who's a
Yeah.
character who's always been mentioned, but we never see them in action effectively. It's just wonderful fan service and wonderful using its last series to sort of tie up a lot of loose ends, and it's been really wonderful. And the fact is, even at its lowest of this series, it's been very good.
Yeah.
It's our complaint through the filler episodes is, what, oh well, it's a cool episode, but why is it not contributing to an overall plot? And when that's the only criticism, rather than being able to be like, that is shit, it's like when you have other shows where they genuinely have shit episodes. Like,
Sammy's also asked, does this sit well amongst the Trek community? Extremely well. This is held in very, very high regard because A, it's a continuation of the Next Generation era, which many fans consider home. And B, like Synoiz has just said, it handles references, cameos so incredibly well. The writing is just brilliant because it's the writing is from really, really deep hardcore fans that love Star Trek, but they will make you'll get the cameo of a major person that we have. Harry Kim in this episode, you've got a cameo from Harry Kim that we've not seen, and it's just like, yeah, it's Harry Kim. But you get a cameo from T'Pol. Yeah, T'Pol, who's never been in 20 years.
Yeah,
and it just like fits.
Yeah, it's so good. They literally somehow they got her back, like despite her not being a massive sort of integration into the Trek community. But it's the fact of when you get shows where it just goes, here's a reference. Like, oh, look, we've got a cameo. Like, how The Simpsons does cameos, where it just goes, oh, we've got Madonna in an episode. And then the entire plot is, oh, it's Madonna. And you're just like, really? Like, that's okay. That's the episode. Like, oh, look, it's Madonna and Marge is hanging around with Madonna and they're doing stuff that Madonna would do. And you're like, that's shit. Like, what is it? Like, Lower Decks basically goes, hey, we're going to bring this character back, but they're not going to be a massive deal. We're just going to have them like they would be in the show. Like, so they go to DS9 and naturally they're like, oh, well, Kira's going to be there, Quark's going to be there, and they're going to be doing the normal kind of stuff. And it doesn't make a big deal of it. It just goes, hey, they are people that exist in this universe and continue doing what they do. Yeah. And it's basically, that's all we want. We don't want to be like, look, we got this special person back and the entire episode is all about them. It's,
It's set in a time where it's like a few years after Star Trek Nemesis. And it's like, yes, of course there is going to be Deep Space Nine. Of course there is going to be Riker and Troy, and there's going to be Kira, Quark, and stuff like that. There's going to be. It fleshes out the world of Star Trek so well in 20 odd minutes that it's been held in such high regard by the community that the community is genuinely devastated that it is ending, because the passion and the love that goes into it by the writers, the producers, the animators, and everything like that, it's just so evident. Like, we could sit and watch. Now we get 20 views per episode from Paramount for these screeners. You could go through 20 times and still miss a reference, still miss a little image or something like that. That's the level of like passionate detail that they go into. And there's always something new, whether it be the writing, an image, or music, or anything like that. And it does fan service to the point where you don't know it's fan service, where it's just like, it's like being back in the 90s with the Next Generation shows. It's like, if you looked at Star Trek, this would just be like, oh, so it's the Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Lower Decks. It's just a continuation. It's just like, we will pick up from this and we will just continue with it. And it just... It's batshit crazy, and they poke fun at Star Trek about certain things, but it is so true to the core of Star Trek and what Star Trek is.
They point out the silliness where they just go, yes, this is actually dumb that this canon exists, so we're going to poke fun at it like fans do. Like, like the idea of Klingons having two dicks, and you're like, why does that exist in lore? Let's poke fun at it effectively.
Oh, in this episode where it's Kim always a forever ensign, and the two Pip Kim is the evil Kim. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like these are tropes that have always been in Star Trek, and they just tackle them head on, like we said with last season with the Nick Lacano Tom Paris reference,
Yeah.
where for decades they were like, how would you ever explain this? How would you identify this? Did Tom Paris change his name? And then Lower Decks just picked it, tackled it in 32 seconds, and moved on and never discussed it again.
Yeah, but like cleaned up that kind of thing and just
In
went, hey,
30
cool, that's a bit of
seconds.
canon that was confusing. We've tidied it up now and given you an actual
Yeah.
answer. Cool, moving on.
In
I mean,
30 seconds.
I think Paul's saying this or Strange New Worlds. Are you meaning what is better? Like, what would you recommend?
They're
'Cause
both equally as good in their own respects.
I posed to you, Paul, were the Goonies or the Batman, because
Yeah.
you're just like, they're totally, you shouldn't ever be in a situation where you need to pick between one or the other, you know? Because
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds obviously has a Lower Decks crossover episode, which is one of the best episodes because it's ludicrous. But it's the fact of like, they both exist in different sort of ways, where Strange New Worlds is the joyous Trek series that we want. Like, it's a continuation of
Yeah,
Trek. And then Lower Decks is like this fun little sort of companion show that does continue the universe and does continue the lore, but effectively is like a fun little thing, you know? It's like a fun little sort of
It's filling the gap.
series, yeah.
It is filling the gap, because if you look at it, like if you look at it timeline, you know, like you do with Star Wars movies, where you go, oh, you have to watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, in chronological order. You could watch TNG, DS9, Voyager, Lower Decks, Prodigy, Picard. That is one massive continuation of one era, and it just fits perfectly. And it's the same with Strange New Worlds. You could probably, when Strange New Worlds ends, you could probably watch Enterprise, Strange New Worlds, Discovery, first 2 seasons of Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and then into the original, and then into the original series, and then that's it. It's slotting in nicely, and then just don't watch the rest of Discovery. But it just works. And there was a lot of apprehension when Lower Decks was announced, like, oh, it's going to be a comedy show, it's going to be crap, blah blah.
It's going to be a cartoon,
and it is one of the best Star Trek series ever made. And I think it's a damn shame that it's ending. And I think Paramount have massively dropped the ball.
I think it's great that it's ending on a high. It's not that I don't have faith that they couldn't have kept the quality going, but I think it's better to end on a high than the end of Enterprise.
If anything, this deserves a movie.
Yeah.
I think a Lower Decks movie.
I will say I'm fully expecting something like this will end, and then they'll be like, okay, cool, here's a new franchise that is the spiritual continuation of Lower Decks, but in a different context, where
Upper
it's not
Decks.
the Cerritos, it's not. I don't know. That's what I'd like to think, but we don't know. But one thing I do need to mention, obviously, is the wonderful conversation that describes both of us, where T'Pol is talking to Mariner about basically like, oh wow, he I think, who are they talking about? They're talking about Harry Kim being like, oh, he's just a massive Starfleet nerd.
Yes.
Like Archer. And then T'Pol's like, yes, massive Starfleet nerd is accurate. You know, like, and it's wonderful getting a reference to Captain Archer from Enterprise in Lower Decks.
I predicted before season 5 came out, I predicted that we would get something Enterprise related, and we have, and I am happy. So I'm a massive fan of Enterprise. I will die on this hill. I love Enterprise so much. I think it's time that we wrapped up this episode, don't you?
Maybe at like 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. This is one of the longest ones in a long time.
We work out. But this is the thing, like Sammy, I was basically saying before we started, I was like, oh well, you know, I can't wait for, you know, like we missed last week because we were both too busy. Oh well, luckily there'll be filler episodes so we can blaze through them in like an hour kind of thing. And then they both turned out to be incredibly good episodes with tons of stuff to talk about. We're like, oh well, guess we might be finished by Christmas.
So next week is the series finale of Star Trek Lower Decks. Will we be live next week?
I'll get back to you. My mate Carmen, who's an amazing Newcastle-based opera singer, She has a show, and I can't remember if it's Friday or Saturday. I think it's Saturday. So fingers crossed. I will get back to you. Sorry,
We
everyone.
will, we will, we will pin that. But it is the season
Why are
finale,
Fridays
and
so fucking busy?
it will be the final regular episode of Trekking Up North for 2024 until we go on our break, and we will be back sometime in the future after I've done
Yeah.
everything and rejigged everything.
I was talking today, and obviously I'm ninjaing you with this because we haven't discussed this outside of this. But I was saying we have so many Trek nerds at Nerdy Up North. Like we have the wonderful Sarah, we have the wonderful Sarah Peaches, we have wonderful Dan apparently. I didn't know about that. We have Chris. I genuinely think we should maybe have an episode that's not about an episode. It's just we just get all of the Trek people on and just see if we can have like a Brady Bunch episode and just actually I think that can be fun, as a little thing.
Yes, one of the layouts I've got planned does have that type of panel. So
What the fuck?
I know.
What the fuck?
I know. I've been planning. But no, I would like to thank my wonderful co-host, Science Officer Synoiz, for sticking with us tonight and celebrating our love of Trek together. I would love to thank our I would love to thank everyone who's tuned in tonight: Sammy, Paul, Beth, Chris, David, Chris, other Chris, sorry, American Chris,
Many Chris's.
Texan Chris.
Are they multiverse Chris's?
Multiverse Chris's, yeah. What if Chris was a Geordie? There he is. What if Chris was a Texan? There he is. Thank you
Lazy
so much.
writing.
For those watching back, thank you so much. For our audio listeners, thank you so much. If you liked this video, please click that like button. If you are not a subscriber to Nerdy Up North, what are you doing with your life? Click that subscribe button because we have content more or less every single day. All the social media
so
links,
much delicious content.
so much. All the social
What do we
media
actually,
links-
Sammy? What are we doing? What's Monsters Up North on Monday? I've totally missed it.
Yes, tell us.
Do your socials there. Say what you're gonna say.
Do your socials. Audios go up on the Tuesday while Sammy and Paul are giving us those details. All of the social media channels are down below for Nerdy Up North, myself and Synoiz, aka the Velvet Snatch. We have got friends of the show, Clone Star Podcast, Search for Trek, ones that I don't work on, like Captain's Quadrant and Trek Culture and everything like that. They are all down there. We have got Adam Ashbridge Music down there. We have got GL Soryu, who is a friend of the show. No Monsters, not till 2025. Oh, they binned it. They're all on hiatus.
My mummy said that there were no monsters. No real ones, anyway.
There are no
I can't wait to see what she's like in the next film. Oh,
there are no monsters under my bread, just Prince Andrew and a Chinese spy. But we are joke number 5. Yeah, he is now. But everything is down in the descriptions below. Tuesdays, Cousin Truckwill will be back this Tuesday at 6 p.m. For another American Truck Simulator. And then on Christmas Eve, it will be the Screaming Streaming Cousin Truckwill American Truck Simulator Christmas extravaganza with possible alcohol and inbreeding.
I must say, I have to say, I'm so happy that you've started your Twitch because it's just... it's so stupid. It's so incredibly stupid. The fact of if you want to see Goodwill with a guitar singing random songs about Lee's penis, say no, this is 2.5 hours already. Don't you? And with and Jeff the stuffed fox and
Jeff
what's
the
the
fox.
owl called? What's the owl called?
The owl is called Steve. Steve the Owl. Steve the Owl. Jeff the Fox. My name is Jeff. Who's got a lot to say, but not at all. I had to remove Daytona last week because I was very ill, and was I fuck dancing 3 times in a row when I'm ill. And I'm still ill now, and I'm surprised I have been able to keep this energy up for 2 hours and 29 minutes.
That's what I said to the guy on Sunday.
Highly. But no, so I am on Twitch. Synoiz is also on Twitch. When do you think you're going to be streaming next?
I was going to be streaming tonight, but I'm like, I think I will. You know what? I will actually stream. I've got to, well, hold on. Are Nerdy Up North live? They are.
Yes.
Nerdy Up North are live. Okay.
They can
I will
raid you.
give it like half an hour and then I'll go live because I don't want to.
They can raid you. Raid them.
Oh my word, Lee and Chris raiding.
Lee finally raiding Synoiz.
I've longed for this moment. We'll see. Yeah, I will go on stream later on. I don't know what I'm going to be doing or what game I'm going to be playing. But yeah, I'll do that a little bit just to keep the numbers up, just to kind of go look.
Twitch.tv/Synoiz, link in the old fish hole below. So thank you everybody.
Also, Nerdy Up North quiz 28th. We're going to post about it tomorrow. The lovely Paul has done the poster, so we're going to post about it tomorrorow.
No more teapots. No more teapots.
All the teapots. Saturday, the 28th of December. So after Christmas, that we'll be doing it. We will be raising money for St. Benedict's Hospice and hopefully getting Goodwill more terrible teapots.
I've got no more teapots, please. They're in my nightmare.
Oh, that's good. And we are joined by a very special guest, which is Paul himself, the cult leader himself.
Who?
Because we were like waiting for a special occasion because it's really difficult because obviously everything else was like, hey, we're doing Halloween. It makes sense that we get Sammy. Hey, we're doing gigs. Oh, we'll get like Kirsty and Adam and whatnot. And when we do gaming, we'll do that. But then I was like, when do we get Paul? Because he just does everything. He just does like things. So we're getting Paul for our Christmas spectacular, which is going to be very non-spectacular.
This
but
time,
join us, Geek Retreat in Sunderland on the 28th.
So this time next week, we will be back either recorded or live. I will be older because I will be 37 next week.
Have you tried not?
Desperately. The existential crisis I have in my bed. No! But
I love that it's like 36 to 37 is such a massive leap. And you're
also,
just like, what?
Before we end, I do have to give out a massive shout out to my partner Zoe. The Advent calendar, the Star Trek Advent calendar I've been doing every day is brilliant. A few questionable things. So, Friday the 13th, this is the box. Huge box, big box, delicious box.
Ooh.
This is what was in it.
Wow, that's
Yeah. However,
that's the weirdest condom I've ever seen.
I do have Enterprise D socks now.
Surely Enterprise D condoms is what we should be looking for.
The lover of all things
Finally,
tea
the
towel.
D.
I have a Starfleet headquarters tea towel.
Ah, okay, that is actually amazing.
I do love
that
tea
is
towels.
fucking tacky. It looks like it should be like a picture of Scarborough, but that's what makes it amazing.
Oh please, I hate Scarborough so much. And then obviously Enterprise coasters. So yes, thank you very much.
Total tangent. I was talking about Scarborough because she's not going to be watching this, which is quite good. But for my mum for Christmas, I've got her tickets to see Judas Priest in Scarborough because they're playing
when
July next year.
She is going to see my girlfriend and her father.
Really? Ah! Yeah. I had to get her tickets for it and stuff, but it's the fact of I told one of my drag mates, Mia T. Cleaver, about it, and she was like, "Wow, I went to Scarborough for rehab, and it was a shithole," and I'm just like, I can't wait for her to be so famous that can be a blue plaque somewhere there.
She was so happy this morning. She was like, I have bought my father tickets to Judas Priest. And then an hour later, she was like, I don't know if my father likes Judas Priest.
Oh, no, seriously. Even if you don't like Judas Priest, you will enjoy them because they are ludicrous live. Like, it's so gay. It's so over the top. I'm tempted to buy myself a ticket if I'm
if her father does not like it, I am going.
The only thing that might be a concern is it is Scarborough, so someone could nick Rob Halford's bike before he gets on stage with it.
More than likely, it's going to be on bricks. And on that note...
Good wheels, then. Anyway, yes.
On that note, it is time to end Trekkin' Up North. Thank you so much to everyone who has listened, who has joined on the live chat, and who is watching this back on the recording. We love each and every one of you. We want you all to take care of yourselves and each other. Live long and prosper, and as every time we say on Trekkin' Up North.
What are you doing, Miles?
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 Hiles!